And I started off today with freedom from the pandemic, and so that's kind of how I start things off in my brain. So I'll do a Funkadelic next time, all right? I got it in the queue for next time. So, all right, welcome everybody. It is Monday, May 10th. I opened up our meeting today with the opening of Wonder Woman. I don't know about you, but sometimes I blast it in my car on my way to where I'm going to pump me up, and I feel like we needed to pump me up for this meeting. So welcome to our city council meeting. To get going, we're going to start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. All right. I pledge
allegiance to the flag
of the United
States of America,
to the republic,
for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, can we have roll call, please?
Councilmember James.
Present in Ferndale, Michigan.
Mayor Pro Tem Leaks May.
Present in Ferndale, Michigan.
Councilmember Mikulski.
Present in Ferndale, Michigan.
Councilmember Polika.
Present in Ferndale, Michigan.
And Mayor Piana.
Present in Ferndale, Michigan. And next on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. What is the pleasure of council tonight?
Mayor, I would like to move 8E and 8F to the regular agenda.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Moved by Councilwoman Mikulski and seconded by Councilwoman James.
Also, Mayor, if I can add, did I hear that we have Commissioner Cavell in the audience tonight?
I'm sorry,
Correct.
I did not see that notice. So thank you for catching that.
So may we add him to, I guess, presentation, make him presentation 5A?
I think it's Councilwoman Mikulski's motion, so if she accepts that as a friendly amendment, I think that's what
that.
and I support.
All right, so we have a motion to add 5A, County Commissioner Cavell under presentations, and we are moving from the consent agenda item 8E and 8F to the regular agenda. Madam Clerk, can we have roll call, please?
Councilmember James,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Leaks May,
Yes.
Councilmember Mikulski,
Yes.
Councilmember Polika,
Yes.
and Mayor Piana.
Yes. Next is our standard talking points of electronic meeting procedures. Dan, do you want to give us an update, status quo?
There's really no changes, Your Honor. As Council's previous resolution enacting a local emergency, Council is permitted to continue with remote electronic meetings through June 30th of this year.
All right.
And obviously, Your Honor, typically you note to the audience that they're allowed to address in public comment items that are both on the agenda or off the agenda.
Okay, thank you. All right, we are moving on to presentations, and welcome to the stage via Zoom is County Commissioner Cavell.
Hi, Council and everybody. Thank you for allowing me a chance to say hello to you all. Hey, first I want to give a quick shout out to Mayor Piana for your advocacy on short-term rentals and conversations you're working on through MML. We are spoiled to have you here, and I think you're like the president of the board of MML, so we're punching above our weight.
I'm retired.
Okay. All right. Well, you still have the cell phone numbers for the people in position, so rock on you. And to kind of take that, I'll say that also all of Ferndale should be proud because at the county level, we are basically copying and pasting as much as we can from the fair housing initiatives that this council and mayor and city manager and economic development team and everyone that works for the city of Ferndale has initiated over the past 3-4 years. We're stealing it shamelessly and trying to implement it as widely as is plausible in the county. So would love to talk with anyone more about our fair housing initiative. Second, ARP rules came out. So Oakland County government will be getting $243 million. We're getting the first half of that money this week. So roughly $120 million is going to drop into our county checking account any moment. And we're trying to figure out what to do with it. We've been sitting with bated breath, and now we have the rules, so we're combing over it. Like when Harry Potter comes out, you go to the end to read what the next storyline is going to be, and so we're reading the rules furiously. But we have plans related to childcare, we have plans related to infrastructure, we have plans related to being the last dollar in, we have plans related to government innovation, so that hopefully there can be a dividend. More to come on that, and if anyone has questions or insights to offer, this is an all hands on deck thing, so please reach out. cavellc@oakgov.com or 248-807-4347 or Google Oakland County Commission. And then to give you also the COVID breakdown, it's been a big week for that here in Michigan. We've reached a threshold that the governor has said is important, which is 55% of our residents in Michigan have been vaccinated. So what's going to happen over the next 6 weeks, if everything keeps up on cadence in terms of not just vaccinations being distributed, but people willingly and taking up the vaccinations, every 2 weeks we should be able to vaccinate in the state of Michigan another 405,000 people, which then means in 2 weeks we'll go from 55% vaccinated to 60% vaccinated, then 60 to 65, then 65 to 70, and 70% is that magic number of reaching herd immunity. So as long as we keep pace with that, and as long as everyone does their civic duty and gets their 2 shots, or if you're getting the Johnson & Johnson, get your 1 shot, we should be in a fairly good spot in about 6 weeks. And if anyone has any questions about the vaccine, I'd be more than happy to talk with you or get you in touch with the health department or figure out how we can make sure that you get the information you need so that you have all your questions answered. That is my brief update.
Thank you, Commissioner. We really appreciate you being here and keeping us updated along the way with all these federal and county changes coming as we start to roll into, I don't know, like going back to normal or some level of normalcy and not being at home.
if I may, through the chair, Commissioner Cavell, do you have an update regarding the 12 to 15-year-olds in the COVID vaccine?
Oh, I mean, nothing specifically from email from the health department, but I do know that it has been proven now through testing, if I'm catching your drift, Mayor Pro Tem Leaks May, that 12 to 15-year-olds now will soon be eligible in the United States of America to receive, I believe it's the Pfizer vaccine, because tests have been done to show that in the test they did, it was 100% effective in not just blocking the disease, but in blocking transmission. That's what I've heard, but that's a developing thing that if you know something I don't know, please share it.
I'm just excited because I have two in that age bracket and we're ready. So thank you.
Right, I hear that.
All right, well, thank you. If there's no other questions from council, we'll thank County Commissioner for being here, and we'll see you at our next meeting. All right, moving on, we are moving on to the next presentation, which is 5B, the presentation of the Police Department's Transparency Dashboard, and our police chief, I believe, is introducing this item.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm really excited to present to you the Ferndale Police Department Transparency Dashboard. To give you a little brief history, the events surrounding the murder of George Floyd sparked a lot of police reform, as you know, across the country, and calls for transparency within law enforcement. It's something that we wholeheartedly support and believe in, and we feel that it's our duty as law enforcement officers and as an arm of the government that transparency is absolutely necessary to build trust and legitimacy for any government agency. So we were fortunate enough to have the idea of this transparency dashboard fostered at the county level and supported financially by County Executive Dave Coulter's administration. And we owe him a lot for his support and rallied a lot of momentum behind this project. I also have joining me in co-presenting Bo Chang from ARC's Community. That's their software developer that really built everything that you're going to see tonight, and we're happy that Bo could join us this evening, as well as Sergeant Danielson and Captain Spellman, who spent a lot of time working on this project, and they really, along with Bo, Captain Spellman and Danielson, they really do deserve all the credit for this project, or the end product that you're going to see tonight. A little bit more history is, when this was launched late last year, they picked 5 pilot programs, and we were fortunate enough to be one. And I think that a little bit had to do with our progressive approach to law enforcement, and it doesn't help it actually does help a lot that our friend David Coulter is up at the county and knows the job that our officers are doing down here. And I think he knew that we would be receptive to the idea. So Ferndale Police Department, along with the Novi Police Department, Southfield, Lathrop Village, and the Oakland County Sheriff's Department were chosen as pilot agencies for this program. And originally, it was designed to be released with 3 data sets that all the chiefs at the time were able to standardize. And then that's one of the hurdles to law enforcement is standardization of data sets and processes. It really does vary a lot from agency to agency, county to county. So it can be difficult to drill down and find that we're measuring everything the same way. So, and Bo will be able to elaborate on that a little bit more, because he's had the task, or he's been intricately involved in this program from the beginning. So he has a lot of experience with police departments in our region. So he knows exactly who we are comparing ourselves to when we release this dashboard. Now, we weren't the first to release our dashboard. And the reason is that we weren't satisfied with the 3 data sets that were released. We know that our city government and our residents expect more in terms of transparency. And we made a commitment to deliver what we felt painted a better picture of what our officers are doing. And it paints a picture of the oversight, the focus on oversight and accountability that we maintain every day. I mean, every single thing our officers do, there's several sets of eyes, and there's a standard to maintain, and we take it very seriously. Without any further delay, actually, I kind of want to turn it over to Bo for a minute so he can introduce himself and maybe provide a little background from his perspective. Then Kyle, Mr. Chain's going to share his screen as I talk our way through it. Is that okay, Kyle?
Sounds good.
Awesome. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Mayor, members of council, and City Manager for joining us today, and obviously the greater Ferndale community. As the Chief mentioned, we're just super excited to partner with a very progressive police department that wants to be transparent with the community to really help build that trust as well as internal accountability. So what we're able to show you today really is the efforts and really led by the Chief of Police, because the data set that we're grabbing today from your Clemens records management and CAT systems, but also the internal systems, this was effort and work from obviously the sergeant, the captain, the chief, and the entire department to provide us that data. So as much as our platform is able to show transparency of police activity to the community, really it's the hard effort of the men and women working at Ferndale Police Department to provide that data that you're about to see. One thing that the chief mentioned is related to some of the initial data sets. And while we believe that the Public Safety Committee and working with Oakland County and Columbus produce some really best practice data sets out there for the community, we also noticed that under Chief Emmy's leadership, that the Ferndale Police Department wanted to put more data out there to kind of set some new standards for transparency. So we're very, very excited to showcase this to you, obviously the mayor, the members of council, city manager, but also the greater Ferndale community, because we believe that internal transparency obviously builds trust and also builds accountability within the police department. So now we kind of have a nice single page to really see exactly what is happening with community and all the great things that the police department is doing. So with that, Chief, if okay with you, I can start to share my screen and I'll walk through it through your cues.
Absolutely.
Okay, let me share my screen here.
Okay. So, as we get started here, I want to say that, we're going to move through this for the sake of time. We're going to move through it briskly. We kind of wanted to show everybody how it operates, how to find it. But, we didn't want to really get bogged down into analyzing the numbers this evening. I am more than happy to address any questions regarding the data and the numbers and potentially why they are what they are. This really isn't the opportunity for that, but I want to say that you can reach out to me anytime, and I'm happy to provide an explanation or the processes behind how we ended up where we end up with the actual results of the data. So we're going to lead off with this actually very attractive. This is going to be a work in process. I want to remind everybody that this is a jumping off point. This is simply the beginning, and we expect this to evolve. We know that eventually we plan on bringing in possibly officer demographics, with possibly citizen complaints, and we're going to be updating that on a regular basis so you can see how we approach our job from like a procedural justice standpoint and from an accountability standpoint. But this is the homepage, and for this link will reside on the city website as well as the police department website. And with any Google search, you can throw this into Google as the Ferndale Transparency Dashboard, and it'll pop up in a Google search. And there's no password. You click on it, and you come right to this homepage. Now, there's some hyperlinks that take you to our annual reports, the department website, and right off, we're going to cover. Obviously, it kind of speaks for itself, but our main data sets that we started with are calls for service, citations, and arrests. That's where it started. That's what the other agencies, the other pilot programs, that's where they stopped. We have since added verbal warnings. Those are traffic warnings. Our response to resistance. This is a industry standard term for what used to be considered use of force. It is now across the country, it's referred to as response to resistance. So that's what that is. When our officers use force, this is the results of that force. And it's gonna paint some pretty interesting numbers. It's probably not what people think in terms of frequency, like how much we use force. We decided to add training. We thought it was important to show our community what we feel is important, and this will be added as our year continues. Every hour of training that our officers receive, it will be tallied, and you can see what we're spending our tax dollars on for training. We're trying to ensure the best, the well-trained, educated officers that we expect. So that's where we're going right now. And then when you look at that, I know there's only a handful of classes up there right now. We couldn't break them down to every single class. We had to break them into kind of like categories, such as leadership and ethics and investigations, and then de-escalation and response to resistance training. And we kind of had to generalize some areas because it would just be too many categories. So outside of training, we also added crime mapping. This is a service that Columbus has offered for many years, but we thought it was important to add it to our dashboard. Now, this is a searchable platform that Columbus already offered, but we thought it was nice to locate it in the transparency dashboard. You're able to break it down by periods of time. Your search, you can break it down by periods of time, what crime you'd like to search. You can run reports, and you can print it if you want. Believe it or not, our detectives use this to kind of like check the area and see if there's any consistencies or like reoccurring crime in an area. It's kind of a helpful tool, and it's pretty interesting when you look at it. And I thought it was interesting. Just kind of piques your curiosity and see what's going on in your neighborhood. But it's a nice tool. We also added crash data. Now, this was something that we debated last year because you want to know who is driving through your town, the transient population that's motoring through your town. Like people don't realize it, and as the mayor pointed out before when we met privately, we have 16 lanes of highway that no one really knows about. But that's what 8 Mile Road and Woodward are in fact state highways, and there's 16 lanes, and they're two of the busiest roads in the state of Michigan. So there's an incredible amount of people traveling our roadways every day. So this crash data was kind of nice to try to paint a picture of the demographics of our motoring public. Just in December, the state police changed the standard state police crash report for the first time to include race demographics. So we thought that was, important to include this data in our dashboard. So like I said, everything you see beyond calls for service, citations, and arrests are initiatives that we took on because we thought there was value in it, and we thought it helped paint a picture of the work that we do every day. Beyond crashes, we also have policy up there. And we tried to select policies. As you can see, we're really proud of that accredited agency logo, so we put it front and center on the policy page. Underneath the policy page, underneath the accreditation part, we have our accreditation report, which is a report authored by the Accreditation Commission that gave us our accreditation. Beyond that, we have all the policies that involve oversight and accountability, fair and impartial policing, our response to resistance policy as it pertains to reporting, any policy that would have to do with ensuring officer conduct review and making sure that we're maintaining a professional police department. And we thought that this was the perfect opportunity to share this information. Yeah, we could put this on our website, but we thought like a one-stop shop for all the data that you would possibly want to know for the Ferndale Police Department was best to be housed on the transparency dashboard. So I'm looking forward to fielding questions. If you have any, again, I would love to meet with you in person or privately if you want to discuss in depth any one category, but I really am excited. I want to kind of give Sergeant Danielson and Captain Spellman the opportunity to weigh in. Maybe I forgot something. Captain Spellman, did you have anything to add?
No, Chief, I just wanted to give you a lot of credit for adding those additional categories. I know a lot of agencies have contacted us and they're really looking to follow our suit or follow in our footsteps. So once again, Ferndale is leading the way. So congratulations to you. You've done a great job.
Thank you, Captain. I appreciate it. Sergeant Danielson?
Yes, sir.
Did you have anything you wanted to add, Sergeant?
I got to be honest, when I first got told I was going to be part of this program, I was a little apprehensive just because I can see how much it took to get into this position. But once I got into it, I was pretty excited about what we were able to share. Our department has really been working hard over the last few years towards accreditation, and this just shows the mark that we were trying to hit. And once again, same thing, Chief, thank you for the opportunity to be part of this. Same thing with Bo. He's been just excellent when it comes to working with him for this program.
Thank you. And Chief, if I may add, and I think a few points that you brought up earlier is when we started looking at kind of some of the things that, probably make sense for all police departments with call for service, citations, and arrest. There are things that, as we work with agencies across the nation, there are things that we see the Ferndale Police Department doing that a majority of agencies do not do or are starting to kind of really do that more recently. One of them obviously related to warnings. We think that it's very important type data to kind of help with the police department, again, building trust and internal accountability. So just a lot of really praise to the leadership to have this kind of data out there. Because we definitely, work with a lot of agencies that either A, don't really have a lot of this data, or B, don't really quite understand the data to put out there. So in working with the chief and the Ferndale Police Department, there's a lot of great, I would consider very progressive thoughts in pushing for better transparency. And to Sergeant Danielson's perspective and Captain Spellman's as well as a lot of other agencies are now reaching out to the Ferndale Police Department to better understand what does this actually mean from a data perspective? And we typically see that as the chief mentioned earlier with data in a lot of areas being non-standard, how do you drive some best practices in the area? And we definitely see Ferndale Police Department leading the ways in how to drive standardization, especially as it relates to things such as response resistance and some of the things that they're adopting because they are an accredited agency, which by far, most agencies in Michigan are not accredited. So, Ferndale Police is really a top 1% of the agencies that are taking the extra level to really build that accountability and that transparency. So this really is truly the efforts of the men and women, the leadership of the police department to have this data out there, because it is, number one, not easy to capture. A lot of, like I mentioned, a lot of agencies don't capture a lot of this data today. And number two, they went above and beyond the requirement to have the data in the system so that they can actually show all the different activities that are happening.
Thank you, Bo. I appreciate it. Just anecdotally, it's kind of, we've been working with Bo, and Bo is able to share, we talk a lot about standardization in Oakland County, and everybody talks about standardized reporting. And there really is no standardized reporting for response to resistance. But we've been working closely with Bo, who really, his team did a fantastic job generating a reporting system with workflows built in that we have just recently adopted. So he took our use of force report, our response to resistance report that the officers are required to complete if they use any, techniques to control a subject. He took our form and he digitized it and turned it into, a tabbable workflow document that it's really, we just started using it. And I think it's a fantastic piece of software. So they designed this, Bo and his team designed it, and we've been working closely with Oakland County Sheriff's Department, and they're kind of waiting for us to finish up our project, and hopefully they intend on using the same form that we're doing, and that's the first step towards standardizing response to resistance reporting for Oakland County, countywide. Now, we won't be able to force other agencies to come on board. We can't tell them that this is the only way to do it, because it's not. It's just what we have identified as a national best practice, and the Oakland County Sheriff's Department is on board with waiting to see how this goes, and hopefully they'll be adopting maybe not our entire policy, but the reporting system and standardizing the way the data is captured. So we're looking forward to maybe we're on the verge of something a lot bigger, and we're happy to be proud to be on the leading edge of it, actually.
Yeah, and actually, Chief Emmy, if I may echo that sentiment, there's a lot of things that the Ferndale Police Department is doing today in collecting response resistance beyond what we see most departments collecting data-wise for uses of force, because a vast majority of an officer encountering resistance may not necessarily be classified as a use of force within most police departments. But because Chief Emmy is really pushing for the leadership and transparency, there's actually more data being collected here to drive that granularity. So we're definitely seeing this as a major trend, and also really the willingness of the department to collect more data and show that to the public.
Yep. So I thank you, Bo. If you want to hang out, I guess I kind of want to open the floor to City Council for any questions you have, Mayor.
I don't have any questions because I sat with you for an hour and a half pretty much, but I did want to open it up to council. I do have comments, but I'm going to hold at the end.
Me through the chair.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So first of all, I want to say how much I appreciate you adding those extra categories. That's appreciative and shows the department's commitment to being more accountable and transparent. I did receive a question regarding the stats regarding disability arrests, if that was something that could be added in there somewhere. I'm also looking at, I just want to also say thank you to Oakland County Executive Dave Coulter for choosing us to pilot this program. I think in the next 2 years, we're going to find out a lot and find ways to even improve everything that we're doing. And hopefully we'll be able to continue this program. And also one more thing before I shut up. I just want to thank the entire department because I think this is just such a collaborative effort, and I'm really proud of you all for taking this on, and I look forward to seeing the results. And I just want to thank you. That's impressive, and I'm very proud of you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. It looks like Councilwoman James and or Councilman Polika have comments too.
Through the chair, if I have one question and then a couple of comments. The question is, if members of the public have follow-up questions about the information that's on the dashboard, what's the best way for them to reach out for their follow-up questions to be answered?
If you scroll to the bottom of every page, my contact information is at the bottom, and there's also a link to my email. And I welcome anybody with any questions to shoot me an email, and we'll get you an answer as soon as we can to your question, or clarify any. Sometimes language. I'm sorry, Mayor, I'm going to steal this. Sometimes our language can be governmenty, and this way we can break it down into terms that the general public can understand. And the mayor helped us with a couple categories, and it made perfect sense that, yeah, you know what, that doesn't make sense, or we need to change this. And there's going to be some changes coming with an update that's, I think, scheduled for the next couple of weeks. But we want to remind everybody that this is just the beginning. This is a jump off point, and we expect this to evolve into what we need. And because it's hard to say what we're going to want for data in the future, but if we have a starting point, we can change it along the way and adapt.
Great, thank you. And I just want to echo what others have said and compliment those who were involved in adding categories above and beyond what our peer cities are doing, and the work that went into putting this together. And I especially appreciate your comments, Chief Emmy, that this is a starting point that will be added to. I know that we talked via email about the work of the Open Data Task Force from 2017, and this information, based on my recollection anyway, overlaps significantly with what that task force listed. Compliment all those involved for that. And the two things that jumped out at me were officer demographics and citizen complaint data that I'd love to see added in the future. But overall, this is a great starting point. Look forward to digging into this deeper.
Thank you.
Councilman Polika?
Yeah, I just want to echo everybody else's comments. I know that you have been working really hard on this program, and everybody in the department has, and I'm so extremely proud of the work that you've done. Once again, Ferndale becomes a model for transparency, and particularly our police department. So I look forward to seeing how this evolves as we move forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman.
And not seeing any others. I don't have Councilman Mikulski in my purview, in my little view up front. So there you are.
I'm here, but I had no questions.
Okay.
I asked my questions over the weekend.
I can't see any of your facial expressions to see what's going on. So, all right. So I just wanted to say, and Councilman James touched upon it, is that to me, this is like round two from the original attempt at the data collection in 2016, as we adopted the 21st century policing principles and had a community task force to guide us through that process. So I'm just really glad that we're evolving, and that there's one thing, what I really learned through this myself is that we're not a big enough city to have this type of database support and software, and there's too many police departments for each one to have their own. So having sort of this regional countywide approach and us being part of the beginning process is that we get to help shape it, inform it, and learn from it. But ultimately, you know, having one place to go to see how all the police departments around here, particularly along the 8 Mile border, of how they're handling, you know, certain responses is really important for people to see that there's consistency, or there's a plan to build more consistency. The data is not consistent. There's probably not consistent policy, police department to police department. And this is a challenge for anybody coming in, visiting, living in a community, about how they're going to be treated by their police. And so that's part of the reform movement, and the way that I view it. So this is bigger, and this can go bigger. So I'm glad that our department is a seed. And thank you to all of our officers and sergeants and everybody who have been participating to get it to this point. I know it's been a challenge. Diving deep into data is not my particular playground, but I know it's others. All right, with that, we are, all right, I am now going to move on to, I think if we're done, Joe, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, through the chair, I just want to also credit Chief the work you did. We've talked about it in the background, how the county could be a scaled partner for smaller governments like us on data for a long time now. And I'm really pleased with the support that the county made, the adjustment they made last summer pretty quickly. And I'm really just, you know, really supportive of you and your command team's willingness and eagerness to roll with the punches and get in there and be a first adopter, which is what Ferndale typically is on so many levels. So kudos to everybody. Bo, great job for your team.
Excellent. Thanks, Joe. All right. We are going to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is call to audience. We set aside 30 minutes during call to audience, and if we need to go over, we set aside more time after the regular agenda items. And if you are going to make comments, we ask you to follow the Zoom blue hand raising, and if you're on the phone, our Assistant City Manager Kyle will take you in queue and call on you to make your comments. And just let you know that you have 3 minutes to make your comments, and if you are nearing your limit, I'm going to lovingly interrupt you to know that you need to wrap up so that others may have an opportunity to speak. Everybody's voice is to be heard, and we have new people coming and speaking for the first time on Zoom to council, so please be welcoming and respectful and courteous during your public comments. All right, with that, one final thing, and for productive conversation, comments should address issues and not people. Please address council and myself, the mayor, rather than staff, because staff take policy and direction from city council. All right, with that, I'm going to hand it over to our Assistant City Manager, Kyle. Take it away.
Thank you, Mayor. We'll start with our one call-in. It is a 248 number. Last four digits are 9209. If there's anything you'd like to add, please go ahead and unmute yourself. And then,
hi, my name is Sherry. Hello?
Yep, go ahead, Sherry.
Okay. Is this the open comment for any item on the agenda tonight, or just specifically what's been discussed at this point?
Thank you. I totally forgot to say that in my setup. Yes, we changed our rules at the beginning of the year. You can talk about anything on the agenda or off the agenda.
Okay. I think the item number is possibly 8E, the public audience chairs for council chambers.
We moved that to the regular agenda item, just so you know. So council will be talking about it later.
I'm sorry?
I just wanted to let you know, I don't know if you were here at the beginning, but council did move this to the regular agenda item for later as well.
So should I wait for the commentary
No, I'm
for that or my question?
Nope, you can talk about here. I just wanted to add more info for your knowledge that council will be debating it later.
Okay. Well, I mean, if I need to ask the questions, now would be the time though, correct?
Please go ahead with your comment.
Okay. So there's several questions. One question is, why was this requested before the consultation for the city buildings was done? I believe that a consultant was hired to do recommendations for the 10 city buildings. So I'm just wondering, why would the chairs be replaced before even getting the consultant's recommendation? That's one of my questions. If you want me to just go down the list, I can.
Please do.
Okay. Another question is, when were the chairs last replaced? Were they replaced after the 2014 flood? Because I believe the council chambers got flooded or had some water damage at that time. And if so, was there no warranty then for those chairs? And if so, I believe from what I've seen, the pictures, possibly they're wood chairs currently with blue upholstery. And I'm wondering if the chairs were damaged by a water event back in 2014, why would you order the same materials now? Because the chairs aren't going to withstand a future incident that could possibly, most likely will happen. I mean, at that point, they would have to all be replaced again. I don't think a warranty would cover something like flooding in the future either. So that just doesn't seem to be the wisest choice. And I'm also wondering, was there a notice for bids put out on these chairs? Or were there just 3 quotes? I believe the wording I saw on the agenda was acquired. Were they just chosen, like somebody just called or looked through catalogs or got advertisements? So that is a question. And I'm concerned about the expenditure that I don't know what the weight capacity for these chairs are that we're planning to be ordered. And I'm concerned that the expenditure is roughly double what some comparable chairs seem to be listed at. And over time, products, something like recycled plastic or recycled aluminum, would over time be less costly because it's going to last longer. Excuse me. And I'm also concerned at this time, this is not probably the best time to be buying products because everything is so costly, especially wood right now. And no one is actually even using those chairs currently. So that's pretty much my comments or questions regarding the chairs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate your comments. We'll be talking about this in more in depth under the regular agenda item. And I think that's where all your questions will be answered.
And if anyone else would like to speak, please raise your hand. Otherwise, Mayor, I see no raised hands.
Really?
No.
Okay. That's unusual. I'm surprised. All right then. Seeing no other blue hands or call-ins, I am going to end a call to audience. And now we are going to move on to the public hearing, which is 7A, consideration of a conditional rezoning and special land use for 397 East Breckenridge. And who is introducing this? I think it's Erin, our sustainability planner.
Yes, I'm promoting her, Mayor.
Welcome, Erin.
Hello, can you hear me? Perfect. Hi, this is Erin Quattel, the Sustainability Planner for the City of Ferndale, and I will be presenting for the public hearing. Mayor, did you open the public hearing? Are we ready to present?
Thank you. So I am now, I will now open the public hearing at 7:47, starting with, there's 4 steps to a public hearing, starting with a staff presentation, and then we move into public comment period, just like the call to audience. And then we move into questions from council and then a motion to debate. So 4 steps. And Erin, why don't you kick us off with the first one with the staff presentation?
Perfect. Thank you very much, Mayor. So I am presenting on the staff report for the 397 East Breckenridge property. It's located between Bermuda Street and Leland Street. The Levine Group is requesting, they requested a site plan approval and review, conditional rezoning and special land use for the property. The current underlying zoning is R2, and they're wishing to conditionally rezone it to R3. The purpose of the conditional rezoning is to allow for greater density on the property. They're looking to build a townhome design, and due to that townhome design, that also requires a special land use. So the request is to conditionally rezone the property to R3 residential to allow for more density, and the special land use is required due to the townhome design. The applicant has appeared in front of Planning Commission at 3 separate meetings for discussion items. 2 of them were discussion items and 1 was actually a public hearing that was tabled. The design team then went back, did some revisions, and did a formal site plan review and application for the last Planning Commission meeting that was recently held. Let's see, what else can I tell you about it? The development is a design of 5 units, and it's 2 separate buildings. They have adequate parking that they're providing. It has 2 front-facing garages and garages in the rear. Something that's exciting from a sustainability standpoint is that each of the garages will have EV charging infrastructure as part of the requirements that we have for new developments, and this is one of which will include that infrastructure. They also have adequate bike parking that's required as part of it. And if the applicant is interested in providing more context about the design, or if council wishes to see some of the site plan on the screen, I'm happy to do that. And with that, I believe, Kyle, I think that it would be either Alec Levine or anyone with the last name Levine that would be a person to give any further comment on and updates and details on this particular request before us tonight.
Yep, we have Alec.
Hello, good evening. Am I able to present my screen?
Mayor, it's up to you.
I don't have the controls. Do I allow that to happen?
No, just if you would allow it.
Yeah, please go if it helps with understanding the zoning.
Yep, we have prepared a presentation that I think would be valuable.
Just a moment and then go ahead.
Kyle, it looks like they may have disconnected.
All right, Alec, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Okay, can you see the screen?
Yes.
Thank you. Hi, good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Shane Levine, and here with me tonight is my brother Alec Levine, my father Bruce Levine, and our architects, Michael and Evan from MGA Group. Levine Group is a 3rd generation real estate development, property management, and building company. Alec and I plan to live on site and be the property managers. So I'd like to go over, or first start off by reviewing the Ferndale master plan. According to the City of Ferndale's future land use map, our development is located in the urban residential district. This future land use of urban residential intends to accommodate a greater mix of housing types with more dense residential developments, and specifically mentions townhomes and multifamily. It also seeks to diversify the housing types and states that this area serves as a transition between downtown and traditional residential area. We believe our plan aligns with the future land use, as mentioned, but is also compatible with existing single-family homes in the area. Our proposed plan aligns to the master plan's goals. First, the master plan land use goal number 2 aims to revise residential zoning regulation in order to support and promote density and housing choice. It specifically addresses R2 zoning as it recommends to increase maximum units per acre to promote greater housing diversity, such as accessory dwelling units and townhomes. It also recommends to remove the maximum lot coverage. Both of these are directly related to our proposal. Furthermore, the master plan housing goal number 4 aims to pursue and encourage new housing development opportunities with specific mentions of multifamily and single-family attached housing. Approximately 80% of Ferndale's housing stock is more than 50 years old, and approximately 80% is single-family detached homes. This goal sets the objective to grow multifamily and single-family attached offerings in order to accommodate the multi-generational community. This is a direct quote from the master plan that I'd like to read. We are an urban community that is lucky enough to be able to govern itself, and we are located basically in the center of the region. That is a huge economic development opportunity, although it means we need to act like an urban community. We cannot be scared of height, density, mixed uses in our new developments. We need enough parking, but not huge surface lots. We need to support regional transit and continue to be a leader in non-motorized transportation. More multiple family housing downtown would help support businesses and make it even more lively. With our residential neighborhoods basically being built out, that seems like the place to focus. Definitely more townhomes and apartments. Greater population density would help put more people out and about in the city. We understand that trends change, and we cannot wait to see how things change. However, many of the trends have further been accelerated over the past year with COVID and other market conditions. Right now, the housing inventory is at extreme lows, and it has been decreasing since the early 2000s. Low interest rates have increased the demand for housing, and COVID has moved people away from cities and urban areas to more suburban communities where they are looking for long-term homes. Finally, the cost of building materials are at all-time highs. President Biden's infrastructure plan seeks to address the housing shortage by offering grants to cities that relax zoning restriction on new construction. So what does this mean for the residents? Unfortunately, the renters and the buyers are the ones that have to pay for the rising cost of housing. And for many, they cannot afford to do so. The younger generation has taken on more and more debt to cover college tuition, which means it will take them longer to save up for down payments, but also takes a large chunk of their paycheck, as younger generations are making less money than the previous generations. College tuition has soared 1,300% since 1979, and student loan debt has quadrupled since the start of 2005. Rising faster than any form of household debt. The median rent nationally is at all-time highs and has climbed 20% faster than the overall inflation rate from the 90s. And given savings rates of the millennial generation, it's estimated that 2/3 of millennial renters would require at least 2 decades to save enough for a 20% down payment on just a median-priced condo in the market. That being said, just 11% would be able to amass a 20% down payment in the next 5 years. So we're seeing buyers, more and more buyers, move in with their family. And this is not just the younger generation. During COVID, the number of buyers who want to live with multiple generations has increased. This is for a number of reasons. Some millennials have moved back with their parents. Also, Gen Xers are building garage-style apartments or backyard homes so they can spend more time with their family, take care of their relatives. So multi-generational homes create cost savings as they have shared home expenses, and families over 18 are not able to leave the home, and many of those who want to come back home are not able to do so because of quarantine and social distancing.
With our proposal, we aim to create a more inclusive and affordable housing option in the community. Given the current market trends in housing supply, we believe our proposal is in the best interest of the people in the community. In the design process of this proposal, we carefully considered the goals of the master plan, and our plan directly aligns with the goals and trends in Ferndale overall. There are many other multifamily and townhome properties in the area. 3315 McDowell was conditionally rezoned from R3 to R3 from R1. It's a 6-unit townhome style property that is much higher than our plan. It has similar building coverage to what we're proposing at 40%. Next, 1741 Livernois is an 8-unit multifamily property that has 47% building coverage. And at previous planning commissions, we heard a lot of comments about a property on Vester, which is only 1 block south of us. That property, however, is much larger. It's 40 feet high. It has 8 units at 42% building coverage. Lastly, 281 Ardmore is a 6-unit, 35-foot high property. And while it's quite compact in terms of building coverage, 60% of the lot is paved. We believe our design is a great fit with the neighborhood because it's not as high nor has as much lot coverage or pavement as some of these other buildings. There are many other duplexes or other multifamily properties near our site. There's a 17-unit apartment building, which is zoned in R2, 1 block to the west. There's another 5-unit multifamily building, just 2 houses to the east. Our proposed plan is 5 units, which is in line with several other properties in both R2 and R3 in the surrounding area. We spoke to many neighbors, and dozens supported our proposal, and we provided a sheet that we actually collected signatures in the packet. We listened to many of the neighbors express their concerns, and at the Planning Commission, we discussed a lot around density, building coverage, garages, and parking. We took all these topics into consideration, and we have now brought forward this plan of 5 units, which is previously reduced. There's 4 units in the front and 1 in the rear. The building coverage was also reduced to 40%, 28%, which is in the front building, which on its own meets the current R2 zoning, and 12% in the rear. We reduced the parking down, but we continue to sustain all parking on site and off of the street, which was a major concern from a lot of the residents who park on the street in the area. We got rid of one of the garages, and now all garages meet the zoning ordinances. Since then, Mr. Malashevsky, who's the neighbor on the west side, his property is only 1 foot away from the property line. We moved all the landscaping and walkways so that if he ever has to do any work on his house, then there'll be enough room so that if he needs to put a ladder up or anything, there won't be anything in his way. Lastly, we brought our building height down from our original proposal, so it's now only 2 stories in the rear, and it sits at 23 feet and 2 inches. We're here today asking for the conditional rezoning to R3, and while our proposal meets majority of R2, the conditional rezoning would allow us to have the extra units and lot coverage to keep this property affordable. In the conditional rezoning agreement, we offered the conditions that we will have no more than 5 units, will not exceed 33 feet in height, and have 40% maximum lot coverage. However, R3 allows for 6 units, 45 feet in height, and 70% maximum lot coverage. So we are significantly underbuilding what R3 would allow, and we are keeping to majority of the limits of R2. We are essentially asking for the additional density and lot coverage from R2, both of which are mentioned earlier in the master plan and land use goals for R2. We have carefully designed the property to fit the goals of Ferndale and the housing trends in the community. We appreciate the support from the neighbors in the area, and we have worked hard to design our proposal around these concerns. We look forward to becoming part of the community. Thank you. We'll be available for any questions.
Thank you for your presentation. And now I'm going to open it up for council. Moving on to the third phase of the public hearing for fact-finding and asking any questions before we move into motion and debate. So I'll open it up to council at this time.
If I may, through the chair. So these 5 units, I'm just trying to see, will they be the same size?
No, there are 3 different floor plans.
Okay. And what will those sizes be? Because I can't find them here.
They range from about 800 to 1,100 square feet.
Okay. And I heard you mention a couple times regarding affordability. What does that sound like to you?
Yes, so the typical standard for affordable housing is that the household income, 30% of the household income should be spent, no more than 30% should be spent on housing. So that way, funds or resources can be used for other things such as food, clothing, transportation, what have you not. So in Ferndale, the median income is about $72,000 for the average household. And so 30% of that is about $21,500, which ends up being about $1,800 a month. And so that's our goal for rent. But, there's different floor plans, like I mentioned. So there's going to be a variation in the range. We don't have any building contracts yet. And I think, as someone mentioned earlier, the price of lumber and other materials are extreme highs right now. So we hope that, with this plan, there's a lot of efficiencies that we can get with the economies of scale to bring down our building costs and keep the shared maintenance so that our residents can also keep their costs down.
With the building costs regarding that 1,800, is that's probably based on your calculations, that's the smaller apartment units?
No, that's our goal. So the largest unit, we're aiming to keep it right around 1,800.
Okay. So then the other units would be less than that?
Yeah.
The smaller ones? Do you have a range that you're thinking about? I know nothing's set in stone, but do you have a range that you thought about?
Yeah, so we're looking right now at somewhere between 17 and 18. It's really hard to say because we haven't secured any contracts for materials or building contracts. So that's our goal. So I really can't be, completely firm on that, but that is our goal for the range.
And you also mentioned that you spoke with you've made some adjustments based on feedback from the surrounding community members.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if any of them are here, but the feedback that the changes that you've made, was there feedback regarding that you've heard or that we can expect to maybe hear tonight?
Yeah, a lot of the feedback was really supportive of the plan. The major concerns, like I mentioned, were on the height and the parking. And we don't have any parking on the street. That was something that we want to make sure we don't disrupt the neighborhood, so there's plenty of parking. But also for our residents, we want to make sure they have a place to park also. So we are providing parking on site. We won't have any street parking, so there's no need to park on the street. For the building height, we're within the bounds for R2, which is the current zoning. R2 allows for 35 feet high, and we're below that.
Thank you. I have no other questions right now.
6 units.
Are there other questions from council at this time? And then once we're done with council questions, I'll go back and open up for public comment.
Through the chair, I got 2 questions. I'm sorry, if you want to go ahead, Councilwoman. Okay. The 2 questions, one, I'll do a quick follow-up on parking. I live on Vester, right around the corner from here, so this gets approved and your plan goes through, we'll be neighbors. And, you know, parking is a hot topic around here. So could you just describe a little bit? I have looked over these plans, and obviously I see the garage spaces. Could you just talk a little bit more about where the additional parking is? Is it basically in the driveway lead ups to the garages, or?
Yes, so there's 4 spots in the front, 2 in the garages, and 2 in front of the garage. And then there are 7 spaces in the rear coming from the alley. There's 3 garages in the rear, and then there's 4 spots on the pavement in the rear.
Okay.
And that's actually in excess of what is required.
Okay. And then my other question is about sort of timeline. If this is approved this evening, what are you thinking in terms of how long this project will last between demolition of existing structure and construction of the new design?
Yeah, I would expect somewhere between 14 and 18 months for it to be complete.
Okay.
All right, Councilwoman
Through the
Mikulski.
mayor? Oh, I'm sorry.
Let's go to Councilwoman Mikulski. I think she had questions.
I just had one question about the alley. The alley, I drove through it today. It's incredibly rough. Who would be responsible for maintaining that alley and getting it up to speed so that people don't bottom out their car when they're going through there?
Good question.
Is that a question to us, or?
That's a good question. I don't know who it is.
Is that the city responsibility or the developer responsibility? Anybody answer that?
Through the chair.
Yeah, so this is Erin. This is a, excuse me, this is a public alley. It hasn't been vacated, so it's a public right of way. And I know that there's been a lot of discussion about what that looks like for alley maintenance throughout the city. And I know that further discussion needs to be had about that and is anticipated through the upcoming master land use planning process for what that looks like for infrastructure needs and maintenance needs for those types of areas through the city.
Okay, so what you're saying, it's the city's responsibility.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, Councilman Polika.
Thank you, Mayor. I can confirm that at the Planning Commission, we have had these conversations about the alleys several times now. So it does need to be part of the master plan. But beyond that, because I sit on the Planning Commission, a lot of my questions have been answered. But one thing that did trigger a thought in my head is because construction costs have gone up so much within the last year and are expected to continue to rise or be at high levels. Are you prepared to go through with the project with the prices this high, thereby increasing the cost of the project, which increases the cost of the rents, et cetera? Or are you considering getting the approval and maybe starting at a later date down the road?
Yeah, we would not. We don't want to delay it. We would like to move quickly and complete the project. It's really an unfortunate situation with the price of lumber skyrocketing. That's out of our control. So we're going to do the best to control what we can and move forward. We don't want to delay it any longer.
That's all the questions that I have, Mayor, but I do have some comments.
Yep, I got to open up public comments, but I'm going to ask my question first too. And I was wondering, what is the estimate? Because when you reduce a unit, you put the cost up for the units themselves. And when you put in more parking, you're actually jacking up the cost per unit as well. And I've been saying this for years that a parking spot is real estate and has value. And when more parking is added to a new residential construction, that impacts the price of the unit. And so I was wondering what any big differences between 6 units and 5 units? Because you guys proposed in the original 6 and then you came down to 5, which signals to me that the cost of the unit went up.
Yeah, so the previous plan had 2 single bedroom units, and we consolidated that to 1 2-bedroom unit. Or sorry, yeah, 1 2-bedroom unit. So we did take out building materials by doing that, and we don't expect that the cost would go up. Actually, the cost went down.
Okay.
And we kept, the same amount of people on the site, essentially.
Okay.
And,
that helps to understand how you made that work with your pro forma and everything, because I know everything is all about balancing that going forward. Okay, that's really helpful to understand. And because I am design particularities of garages in front in a city that really honors front porches. How come that was valued over anything else of having front porches?
yeah, so each, the front 4 units do have their own porch that is facing the front, and the rear also has their own porch. That was something that we made sure to include. The garages, in an early revision, we had them separated and set back to the sides, but the consideration to combine them reduced the amount of curb cut and pavement, which was something that we heard feedback, which was preferred, actually.
Okay. Our planning commission, I trust them and they know what they're doing. But generally front garage facing our traditional housing streets isn't preferred, but I understand what you're trying to do here with the missing middle, which is something that we've been trying to attract for a while in Ferndale. Okay. I think I was the last one to ask questions. So right now I'm going to open it up for public comment. Again, just like the call to audience, you have 3 minutes to make your comments. And Kyle, our assistant manager, will take the hand raisers via Zoom, the blue hand raisers and phone calls, and we'll go from there. And please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
All right, Mayor, first up we have Dave.
Hi, Dave.
Hello, Mayor. You hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Welcome. Hello, Mayor. Hello, council people. I'd like to say a few words about the project in Breckenridge and also about the subject of upzoning in general. Over the last month or so, I've done a bit of research about what other communities have done or are planning. I'd like to share with you what I found. So far, I've looked at Oregon, Minneapolis, Seattle, Chicago, Atlanta, Berkeley, San Jose, and Sacramento, California. None of them would allow the projects being considered tonight or the project on Vester Street. None of these states or cities would allow more than 4 units on a former single-family lot, nor would they allow putting lots together and building multi-unit apartment buildings such as the one on Vester Street. In fact, I have not found one example of a city that would allow this project. I'm not totally against upzoning. However, from my research, it appears that Ferndale's upzoning is extremely radical and one-dimensional. One common feature from all the places I've named is that they all have legislation removing accessory dwelling units from the special land use category, as it is in Ferndale, to the same status as putting a regular addition onto your house. No addition, no hearings, no asking for permission, no refusals without good reason. Accessory dwelling units are very homeowner friendly. Accessory dwelling unit legislation allows homeowners to cash in on their spare land. And because there is no cost for the land, these tend to be more affordable and more likely to be built than other types of upzoning. In consideration of what other cities are doing across the nation, it would appear to me that the wise thing to do would be to put the stop right now to developments the one being proposed this evening on Breckenridge Street. However, in consideration of the hoops that applicants have jumped through to this point, perhaps that would not be fair. However, as the city prepares for its next 5-year plan, I believe we need to take a long second look at what we're doing now and what we really want to achieve with our upzoning. I'd like to leave you with a quote from Pete Saunders, an urban planning consultant based in Chicago, Illinois, who was actually born and raised in Detroit. He says, relaxing zonings in cities or metro areas with a lower housing demand, which is in the case for much of the Rust Belt, in my opinion, would lead to a concentration of new housing development in the most in-demand neighborhoods within them, at the exclusion of other neighborhoods and suburbs. It would serve the affluent, it would be clustered, and would potentially decrease affordability and further increase inequality. Respectfully, that sounds like what we're doing here. So yeah, when we look at the next 5-year plan, I think we really need to take a second look at what we're doing here. I think this is pretty much anti-Detroit for one thing. There really isn't a huge housing shortage. There's a housing shortage where certain people want to live. If we're not helping the problem, in my opinion. Anyways, thank you very much.
Thanks, Dave.
Next, Mayor, we have M. Poniatkowski.
That's pretty close to try. Hey,
I apologize.
No problem. No problem. My name is Matt. I'm not nearly as well prepared as Dave there. That was a nice.
Hi, Matt. Welcome.
And also, my wife's name is Melissa. We're the owners of 400 right across the street. While I appreciate that the property across the street, 397, I believe is the address, is due for updates. I don't believe that the previous owner had the money or the wherewithal to make improvements. And I do like the overall design there. 5 units in that space is a lot. I think that's going to jam up the entire space. It's going to stick out like a sore thumb in the neighborhood. There's a lot of charm. Mayor, you were mentioning the front porch culture that exists in Ferndale, and particularly on that street, is something that we value in that neighborhood. I think that's just a little bit too much. Again, I do appreciate the desire to upgrade that lot because it does need it. That house is dilapidated and certainly needs improvement. But I think that this 5 unit is far too big. I mean, maybe 2, maybe 3, 4 is an absolute max. But I think that what we're talking about here is something that's going to be in there and going to stick out like a sore thumb. And I'll give the rest of whatever 3 minutes that I have here for my wife.
I just want to know, I mean, if this does get approved, you know, I already know that they made reductions in the number of units and the height and whatnot, but I want to know what's going to be in place either via Ferndale or the approval that's going to limit it and keep them to where they are now. That's it.
Thank you, Melissa and Matt, for your comments.
Thank you.
And next, Mayor, we have Emily Ober.
Hi, this is Emily. I don't live in this part of town, so I don't have particularly strong feelings on this development, but I heard a lot of mentionings about multifamily and how, you know, we have many generations living together, and I just have to say that a lot of intergenerational families, part of that is that there are members of the family that are aging. And I don't think developments where every single unit has steps to get to a bedroom really serves that demographic. So I think that's a little disingenuous. And I think in Ferndale, the idea of putting the garages on the bottom and having stairs up to every major living space is not the style of development that we should be encouraging. We need more accessible units and more units where, you know, there's a bedroom on the first floor And we can do more aging in place that way and really diversify our housing stock. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily.
And next, Mayor, we have Bernie Fraser.
Hi, this is Bernie Fraser on West Saratoga. I just wanted to mention that I think there might be an issue with the raising hands function. I had to log in and out 3 times in order for it to work, and maybe that's why there weren't any hands raised at the public comments, because I was trying several times at that point. Thank you.
Thanks, Bernie. And then we also have Mayor D. Clemente.
Hi, Dee.
Oh, there they go.
Just wanted to address a couple things. I know the alley access and the no porches, that was one of the concerns that I had. The parking, you mentioned there'd be 2 cars in the garage and 2 in the driveway. So I guess I'm questioning, it would be sidewalk, car, driveway. They would actually be in the driveway. So there would be no set green space from the sidewalk to the driveway itself. The alley access is a concern. And I also just wanted to question the neighborhood signatures. The document that I viewed, I didn't see anybody in the houses around, in front or behind on your signature list. And several folks that signed don't actually live in the neighborhood. So I'm a little concerned with perhaps a little skew on community approval. Thank you.
Thank you. And then also we have Sherry on the phone, just in case she wants to add anything.
Hi, Sherry. And anything else at this point?
Nope, Mayor, that's all the raised hands and call-ins.
Sorry, I couldn't unmute myself. All right, so that concludes the comments for the public hearing, and now I'm going to move on to council discussion of this item. So questions have been asked, and so we need a motion to move into debate.
All right, I will make the motion in terms of discussion. I move that we approve the conditional rezoning and special land use for 397 East Breckenridge as submitted by the Community and Economic Development Department.
We had one council member just get kicked out of the meeting.
Support.
She's on her way back in, Mayor.
Okay. So we got this motion was moved by Mayor Pro Tem Leaks May and supported by Councilman Polika. And so now we can have comments and discussion. Who would like to start? Is Councilwoman James back in? Yes.
Mayor, I can start. So this was first presented to the commission as an initial project. I want to say back in December. Maybe it was even a little earlier than that. But there were a number of changes that the developer did make from that initial review that has then been put into this design. As mentioned earlier, it went from 6 units to 5 units to support some of the concerns about the density on the location, and more of the height density than the percentage of land use, because my understanding is the percentage of land use actually hasn't even changed. I know that there are a lot of people like myself that dislike front-facing garages. However, this design does meet the 5-foot recess requirements under the ordinance. And if we want to eliminate front garages completely, then we need to capture that in the 5-year master plan and have that regulation changed through the zoning change process. That's something to consider. But at this point, as much as people may dislike the design, it falls under the requirements. They've met all of the requirements in regards to design. And the only difference is the 5 percentage point of 5 percentage points of density on the property, and the number of units, which this zone would only allow 3 units, and they're asking for 5. And so that's why I'll be supporting this project. Density is important to the community. We've been expressing that for years, and I just think this is a very good project for this neighborhood. So that's all I have to say, Mayor.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Please go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
If I may, through the chair, I'm looking at these letters of support, and I'm looking at the date, and I was just wondering, how does this date correspond with when this was presented at the Planning Commission? I'm sorry, I don't know when that happened. And I'm seeing the signatures here. Was this after the amendments, before the amendments to the plan? And do you have anything more current than March 6th for showing support of the community, of the neighbors?
So on, I believe it was March 17th, the commission approved the public hearing that then took place on April 21st. So those signatures would have been captured just before the approval of the public hearing on the project by the Planning Commission.
Through the chair, it was tabled and then at a subsequent meeting. So it may be that it appeared in front of Planning Commission originally for public hearing on the 17th of March, but then appeared at the April 21st meeting again for the public hearing for Planning Commission, where it was recommended for approval by vote of Planning Commission.
Thank you for that clarification, Aaron.
May I ask then, who was responsible for the community outreach to even obtain these signatures?
The development team. Yeah, Councilwoman, it's the development team.
And are there any, or is this, so as for this date, is there more support that's been recommended? I'm sure there's more people than this on that block that's affected by this. That's why I'm asking. This development. So I was just wondering if there is even, is there more support than what I'm seeing here? I can't really even read it, but I can count the spaces here. Is there more support is my question, since this signature page?
If I may, we walked through the neighborhood, my brother and my dad and I, and we did knock on all the doors, and if anyone was home, we did have a conversation and shared the plans with them. Not everyone was willing to express the signature. That was just something that we wanted to capture. but we did capture whether they, they had any concerns before we brought it forward to the Planning Commission. There were some residents that did say, that they supported it, but at that moment were not comfortable signing. We just wanted to capture the signatures to show that, we did go and walk the neighborhood and talk to the residents.
To the residents that maybe you weren't able to reach, because a lot of residents don't want to answer their door. Was there something left or something to allow them to be able to connect with you on their own?
Yeah, we did provide like a one-page front and back sheet and walked around with many copies of those.
So I guess my question is was it left at the door of the homes that did not answer, is what I'm asking. If you can.
No, I don't think it was our sheet was, but I believe, Aaron, if you can chime in, the public hearing also shared the full packet.
Yeah, so for any public hearing, like we handle other public hearings as required, we have a mailing that goes out. But I think that what the council person is asking is any additional information that was shared to the greater community from the development team. For public hearing notices, we have the set radius that we send out as a mailing, which states the requirements such as the place, the date, the time, the particular public hearing notice for what's being reviewed in front of the decision-making body, and how they can provide any comment to staff.
Okay, so no, aside from the neighbors we talked to and shared that one pager, there was no additional material that we had shared.
Other comments from council?
I have a quick question to the developer. Is it true that the individuals that are directly across the street and right next door and right behind are not part of that signature package?
I don't have the addresses off the top of my head, but we did knock on all the doors. Not everyone was home.
So, any others? Councilwoman James?
Yeah, I'll just sort of comment generally that, proposals like this are not slam dunks. They're not easy decisions because there's a lot of competing interests. One, as one of the callers or one of the participants mentioned, this is a property that is in pretty rough shape. The porch kind of has this really odd look to it. It almost looks like it's melting, like if concrete can melt. The property is really in desperate need of an upgrade. And we have a goal of diversifying our housing stock. We're primarily single family units, and that's even a terminology that I need to get used to moving away from because separate detached houses are what we have. Generally we need a bit more smaller units, attached units, apartment units. Those are the type of units, all of these types of units are in high demand. And I certainly support diversifying that missing middle. But I do have an affordability concern. I heard the math that you outlined. I don't necessarily disagree with the formula that you came up with. But $1,800 a month is quite a bit of money. It's much more than I spend on housing a month, and it's more than a lot of families in the community can afford. I'm routinely hearing that people are looking for something below $1,200 a month. That's what we are missing, is that section of affordable housing. you know, and another concern that I want to express, if this does move forward, is to just have a really open dialogue with your neighbors about the stress of the construction period. I live right across the street from the hotly debated Vester property, and the construction has been, you know, a point of stress, and the neighborhood is exhausted. So to the extent that any new construction or rehabilitation of properties are taking place, it's important to be really mindful of neighbors who've been experiencing a lot of that in this neighborhood in general. So no matter what decision we make tonight, you know, not everyone's going to be happy. Some people are going to be happy. Some people are going to be upset. These are really tough decisions. And I'm mindful of that as we listen and move ahead and make our decision.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Did you have another question or comment, Mayor Pro Tem?
I do have another question. Now, I am not against diverse housing in Ferndale or smaller family, multifamily units. I'm not, because I know we have to be a little more creative with our spaces these days, and we want to try to provide housing that's suitable for different family types, different economic types. What I do have to, what my question is why is there, I think, well, first I'm going to say that I think if we're going to have these developments and be just proactive with housing in Ferndale, we do need to really start considering the ADA accessibility for these houses. And I was just wondering why that wasn't a consideration in this plan for even 1 unit or 2 units. It's just kind of important to that we start seeing housing like that based on the comment that we heard earlier. And the more I thought about it, I'm thinking there's not really, when I hear about these plans, you don't hear a whole lot about the accessibility. So may I ask why this wasn't considered in this plan?
Yeah, in terms of the ADA, the townhome style ADA doesn't, the standards are not exactly the same as what you would expect from like a larger scale apartment building. But there are other things to consider. Living in a smaller property like this, there are shared maintenance, you know, not having to mow the lawn, those kinds of things that, you know, will be taken care of.
So technically, but someone with, I mean, so let's talk about just, you know, let's not even talk about the stairs. I mean, stairs in my home are just atrocious. So I know that it's very difficult the older you get. But just let's talk in terms of even doorways and accessibility such as that, or even bathrooms or anything like that. So I'm just asking, even if you can't do anything about the stairs, is there anything considered ADA accessible within your units at all that you're proposing?
Yeah, I'm just going to invite my architect, Michael, to chime in here.
Okay. We do a lot of multifamily and commercial. In the Americans with Disabilities Act, we know inside and out. The townhouse style units, especially a 5-unit such as this, would never be asked to have those kind of conforming issues. My personal experience, my 89-year-old mother lived on a 2nd floor apartment, and she said, I chose the stairs because that's my exercise. So again, it's, yeah, I mean, large complexes like the apartment buildings that we're seeing on 9 Mile, of course, they have to comply to all of that. And I think you even put out, new construction is inherently user friendly because it has the longevity and the stability. And I think giving a new, something that someone's not going to have to do any maintenance for 25 plus years, I think there's a lot of ways to help a senior person and help someone that might have some challenges. But you really, it's not a viable to try to ask a 5-unit, and that would drive, and back to your affordability question, making wider hallways, wider doorways, turning radiuses, and all that would add cost to this small project that would be somewhat challenging to have in these units. So I think we champion that fact that there has to be accommodations, but I don't think this is the right time or the right place to have this discussion right now.
Right. Thank you. All right, so I'm gonna wrap up with my comments and then we'll move into vote. First, I just wanted to say thank you to staff, developers, and council for considering this. And it seems like the Planning Commission did definitely due diligence and time and care in working with the developer and residents to make sure that the best proposal came forward for a rezoning request. I'm personally disappointed that we do have front-facing garages here, but as part of rezoning and master planning and zoning, if it complies with the regulations of the city, we're more or less obligated to support that because they meet our regulations. And I agree with Councilman Polika, we should be taking a look at front-facing garages in our city as part of the master plan and rezoning conversation that happens after a master plan update. And I really appreciate Councilwoman James's introduction about how difficult these decisions are when it comes to rezoning, particularly with our housing. And we definitely are facing a lot of pressures about housing pricing, attainable price points, a different type of housing choice, and having it near, transit options. And we are one of the few cities in our region outside of Detroit and the Woodward line where we have a walkable community around transit options. And we definitely have policy in our master plan that supports missing middle housing, and I can guarantee you, so does Hazel Park. I know because I looked at their master plan, so does Madison Heights, so does Oak Park, and so does Berkeley. So every city around us, I did not look at Pleasant Ridge though, every city around us is looking to do infill development on the missing middle, which is duplex, triplexes, fourplexes, townhomes, courtyard apartment. I don't know exactly what this 5-unit one is called. Where does that fit? Is it a courtyard townhome? I'm not real sure, but really it's a new product. It seems like that has really never been done in Ferndale before. And there was a comment made earlier that, no one would ever allow 4 units on a single family lot. Well, I encourage you to walk down West Camborne or West Breckenridge, where there are single family homes interspersed with duplexes and fourplexes and apartment buildings. I live near all of them. They're near me in my neighborhood. And so they used to be built like this. And a lot of these stopped being built, and we are getting a new modernization of it with this design. So I think, and definitely putting pressures on our neighborhood streets that are close to the downtown, which is why it's zoned our, the way that it's zoned. So I think this is, and then the accessibility, I do think we need to have some education, not only with council, but also with the community about what types of development products being proposed can be accessible and which ones cannot. so that we have a better evaluation of what's being introduced into our community by the development teams. Because I think that's a critical conversation that we need to have as we try to figure out how to do that. I think for me, I definitely were leaning supportive of this project, and I really do appreciate you folks to going and knocking on doors. A lot of developers don't do that. They just send a letter and wait for the planning commission meeting, but you went a little bit further here, and I appreciate that. And as you are going to be their neighbors if this gets built. So that's my comments for tonight. Seeing no more other questions from council, and it looks like I'm the last one to make comment. I'm going to push it off to our city clerk to have a roll call on the vote.
Mayor Pro Tem Leaks May.
I will say that we really need to have more conversations, as you stated, Mayor Piana, regarding the accessibility. But in terms of this project, for now, and I just want to also state that I'm going to be far more proactive, and when these plans come, to really be looking at that from now on. So I would hope that we would be taking that into consideration from now on. It's important. Based on where I work, I hear about these stories all the time. I work at the Area Agency on Aging, and we're getting calls all the time for individuals who need accessibility in their units. And we don't know who's going to come live in these units, or if they're going to have family to come live in these units. If it's going to be multifamily, we don't know what families are going to deal with along the line. So I think we really need to be considerate regarding that in the future. But in terms of this project right now, I'm going to vote yes, because it will, I think, bring up that area. That lot will not be an eyesore, and it will serve a purpose of housing in Ferndale. But again, I'm going to be looking harder at future developments. So yes.
Councilmember Mikulski?
No.
Councilmember Polika?
Yes.
Councilmember James?
I'm going to add a comment to mine. Ultimately, I'm voting yes, and I know that we don't usually give this much comment during a roll call vote. But I think this type, this size, and this type of housing is needed. I don't think this is a win on the affordability category, though.
And Mayor Piana.
And yes. And I've already made my comments on those. And not everything can have a affordability with an incentive from the city, but this wasn't brought to the table for this development. All right, folks, this passed, and we are moving on to the consent agenda. And I'm going to read it in entirety, and remember that 8E and 8F were removed to the regular agenda, and I'm going to re-letter them based off of what they are with the removal. All right, so 8A, approval of the minutes of the regular and special meetings held April 26, 2021 as submitted by City Clerk. 8B, approval of the proclamation designating May 17 through 23 as National Public Works Weeks as submitted by the City Manager. 8C, approval to adopt a resolution to recommend qualified licenses for Ferndale Social District as submitted by DDA Executive Director. 8D, approval for the display of the Juneteenth flag from June 14, 2021 through June 21st, 2021 outside the Ferndale City Hall building in recognition of Juneteenth celebration to be held on Saturday, June 19th as submitted by the Director of Special Events. 8E, approval of the special event permit for Gravity Art Fair and Skate Park Contest to be held on Saturday, June 12th and approval for the Director of Parks and Recreation to sign the agreement between Reveal Productions and Ferndale Parks and Recreation as submitted by the Director of Special Events. 8F, approval of the special event permit for the front porch to be held on Saturday, June 26, 2021, as submitted by the Director of Special Events. 8G, approval to backfill one DPW labor position left vacant due to the separation of a DPW laborer and one new DPW labor position approved in the new budget as submitted by the Human Resource Director. 8H, approval of the agreement with Giffords Webster to produce a boundary survey for Wilson Park and a topographical study within the park in the amount of $8,900, and the authorization for the Parks and Recreation Director to sign the agreement as submitted by the Parks and Recreation Director. 8I, approval of the proposal from Expert Lawn and Snow for landscaping and property maintenance services for execution of community standards resulting from code enforcement activities as presented by this assistant building official. 8J, a consideration of revised easement between the City of Ferndale and owner of 946 Pinecrest as submitted by CED Director. 8K, approval for Department of Public Works Deputy Director to sign lead service line replacement and service line materials verification program contact documents as submitted by Deputy Director, DPW Deputy Director. And 8L, approval of the bills and payrolls as submitted by the City Manager's Office and subject to review by the Council Finance Committee. Need a motion from council to proceed.
I move to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
Moved by Councilman Polika and supported by Councilman Mikulski. Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Mikulski?
Yes.
Councilmember Polika?
Yes.
Councilmember James?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Leaks May?
Yes.
And Mayor Piana?
Yes. And now we are moving on to the first item of our regular agenda out of 3 items. It is 9A, consideration of the construction closeout payment to Colasanti in the amount of $180,178 to be paid from the auto parking fund. And kicking that off is our city manager.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. If you give me one moment, I will bring up the presentation. And fair warning, somewhere there's a cat in this room, so you might hear a meow. No clue where, though. Okay, is everybody able to see that screen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, this evening I am here to provide an overview of the conclusion of the DOT project as presented via the final closeout payment with Colasanti. And as part of the submittal, I wanted to provide a general review since this project dates back significantly and has had a significant amount of twists and turns. Review the core objectives. I want to just do one cursory overview of the budget, the initial budget and the funding sources, summarize the project closeout costs to date and review those change orders to date, and then provide a glimpse of next steps for the project because the project is a mixed use project that has a lot of elements that are still ongoing that we'll comment on at the end. Initially, the DOT was approved, the initial site plan was approved in 2018 after a year-long development and public engagement process. The core objectives of the project were, first and foremost, solve the downtown acute parking shortage issue that had been studied for a long time. So this project, first and foremost, wanted to address that basic need. Aside from that, the other needs around commercial development in downtown economy were to provide additional street level retail space and promote walkability. Catalyze the downtown office market via future development on top of the DOT, and provide city-sponsored affordable housing on the site known as Parcel B, which is currently the temporary lawn that we see in the picture on the west side of the development. From an environmental perspective, our goal was to address the open air compactor system that was providing a lot of noise pollution and irritants to most people who bordered that the previous surface lot. We wanted to double the city's electric charging stations, which we've done so. I believe there's 7 installed on the 2nd floor. We installed a underground stormwater detention system, which I believe is the first underground stormwater detention system on a city project. So this was very much a demonstration project of what we hope to require other developers to do. So we provide a good standard there. And then of course, increased downtown tree plantings and other vegetation in and around the development. The initial project budget as bid through the records, which we've shown on the Ferndale.com. The original contract was for $20.2 million with Colasanti, and we offered a $1 million contingency with use of auto parking cash reserves. And that is from the original council meeting as presented in 2019 as part of that approval. Other revenue resources that contribute to the project, the DDA agreed to contribute a lump sum of $250,000 from their fund balance upfront to support the West Troy streetscape renovations and improvements. And then they're making annual payments as well to the auto parking fund over a course of 20 years. The special revenue fund transfers also include transfers in from the sanitation fund to address the new compactor enclosure, which we'll speak about later in the presentation. The water fund contributed dollars to replace the West Troy water main ahead of schedule and also replace some commercial lead service line replacements as part of that project while we were down there. And also, of course, the underground detention system, which we discussed earlier. And the drug forfeiture fund, the police department, the former police chief Palazzolo provided some funding towards the public surveillance system that was installed in the DOT, as well as some radio enhancements that would enable first responder radios to be optimized in the basement level. This is not the prettiest slide, but it's the most straightforward slide that I could show. So this is a summary of all of the initial project costs and change orders enumerated by dates of approvals presented at City Council publicly. And then also I have summarized, so here we begin with the original project contract sum that we just discussed. And here's a summary of the final change orders, including tonight's closeout. Those change orders net out to $2.9 million, giving you a final project cost listed here. And then you deduct the planned contingency funds that we had, which were contributed to the first two, and then the reimbursement agreements, the terms that we were able to negotiate with the developer for the reimbursement agreement. So all of that nets out to an overage of $799,837, which is about a 3.9% contract overage. So there's been a lot of questions about what that is because, again, the scope of this project has taken a lot of twists and turns, whether it be through a pandemic or through the 4th floor. So that is the correct final number. That also is available on the DOT Archives project site, ferndale.com. And next slide. Hold on, I froze. There we go. And this is just the brief overview of the change orders. This looks familiar. I provided this back in July 2020 last year, and I thought I'd dust it off and just put this as a refresher summary slide for the viewing audience. So the first change order was largely related to earthwork issues. We would consider this typical construction risk. This is why you have a contingency, especially when you dig below about 40 feet below grade. You're bound to run into problems. That's one of the risks for building a basement level parking structure. Change order 2 was related to office design changes that were made to the development per the development agreement, and at the time per the agreement that was approved by the MEDC, Michigan Economic Development Corporation, which was supporting the office and residential and retail portions of the project at the time. Change orders 3 through 6 represent the 4th floor adjustment. I highlight that as unanticipated. We've talked about that. And then change orders, the pursuing changes, subsequent change orders were just related changes that were made in response to that 4th floor unknown and the COVID-19 related costs that we've made since then. Again, this is just a review. This is pulled from the July meeting, but I find it a helpful summary of what the cost drivers are and what the nature of the change was. This is the change following the MEDC approval that approved the incentive package. And of course, later that incentive package was amended by the MEDC following COVID-19. Change order 3. This is the 4th floor office floor plate, the transfer slab, if you will, that was discussed back in February. There's the COVID-19 suspends construction for a couple months. And then, as we said, the subsequent change orders are related to modifications directly related to that transfer slab and COVID-19 adjustments that had to be made once the nature of the project, the final project, was changed for the short term. We also knew once the 4th floor happened and once the COVID-19 pandemic hit, that our first and foremost priority was to get back to the table and negotiate with the developer. And so we were able to successfully negotiate with the developer agreement through the early part of the pandemic in June 2020 when council approved that. The key takeaways that are notable for this, which are noticed in the 3rd attachment in the packet, if you look at page 5, you see the terms that the developer and the city are bound to within the development agreement. We negotiated reimbursements for $225,000 related to parking spaces that otherwise would have been built had it not been for their development needs. $927,000 for office-related development reimbursements, which include that 4th floor. Then we also negotiated that they pay all legal and closing costs that the city would have. So if you've ever closed on a house, they're paying our closing costs. So all that nets out to, aside from the closing costs, because those are unknown, we haven't closed quite yet, a total of $1.15 million in reimbursements. And that is the sum of these two numbers here. And then this is just a change order summary again. So that circle, that's the actual overage. And I hope that addressed that question. And the next steps, in May, this month, we are moving forward on rear screening solutions that the DPW has been testing with some screening fabric. The DPW hopes to complete the parking office, and Reef Parking should be moving in. I would suspect that Reef's parking presence is only going to add, is only going to be a benefit for customer service for businesses and residents and patrons of the DOT. Having a presence on site is certainly going to be helpful. We hope to open the downtown bike locker to residents. We hope to transition the downtown compactor into the sanitation room over the next few weeks. So all of these things will be happening in May. And then May and June, we are in discussions with the developer about announcing successful pre-leases for the retail tenants. Those negotiations, those lease agreements are being negotiated right now, but we're feeling very optimistic about the direction they're going. And once that happens, we would execute the retail real estate closing process, which triggers those reimbursement agreements. We expect by July, the developer has indicated they are hoping to get back on the Planning Commission's agenda with a discussion item. They had presented an initial discussion item back in, I think it was early December 2020, and they've been primarily focused on the retail piece of the project, but they do have an architect retained who's working on the residential concepts. So they've amassed the feedback taken by the commission and the public at that meeting, and they're interpreting that into a next iteration. They hope to present again in July 2021. So that's when the residential concepts will come up. And with that includes my summary and walkthrough. And Mayor, I would stop my share and go back to you for questions of council.
I'll open it up for questions for council. At this time, closing out this is sort of like the closeout of the finance of this project at this time, and accepting everything from the developer as the city of Ferndale's ownership and liability going forward.
Through the mayor.
Mm-hmm.
So Joe, just to confirm, the $180 or $180,000 that we're approving tonight is part of the total cost of the project. This is just the remaining money that we still owe the people. It's not something in addition to some additional costs or fees. This is strictly, they did the work, we owe them the final payment on this money.
Yeah, that is correct, Councilman. They actually initially asked for close to $300,000. When I say they, I mean the subcontractors in Colasanti had made $300,000 in values of claims that the city would owe in the project. There was some disagreement about that, specifically as it relates to costs related to COVID-19 adjustments. And so we successfully spent the last a couple months negotiating downward to an agreeable $112,000. Those are costs we could agree on. And
Thank
so
you.
the final cost is 180. Yep.
Other questions from council? Okay. Seeing none, we need a motion.
I move that we approve the final change order in the amount of $180,178 to be paid from the auto parking fund as submitted by the city manager.
Support.
Moved by Mikulski and I believe supported by Councilwoman James. All right, Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Palka,
Yes.
Councilmember James,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Leaks May,
Yes.
Councilmember Mikulski,
Yes.
and Mayor Piana.
Yes. All right. Thank you, Joe, for taking us on this long journey and surviving the pandemic and opening the dot. Before we move on, I did have one request with the developer. If there could be some sort of a sign coming soon of housing in front of the raw side of the building. I've been walking with some residents and they're like, can you just paint it? They didn't understand that something else was coming in the future. So having a coming soon sign or what it could look like after the site plan concepts are done would be helpful.
Agreed. I will bring that to them.
Okay. All right, moving on. We are moving on to the second regular agenda item, which is, what number am I? 9B, which is the approval to purchase replacement public audience chairs for council chambers in the amount of $20,197 as submitted by Director of Special Events and Projects. And Councilwoman Mikulski asked this to be moved from the consent to regular, so I will invite her to kick off this conversation.
So the reason that I brought this to the regular agenda is because the price tag is staggering. I understand the need. We've all been in council chambers before, and I was sitting in the audience back in 2019 listening to all the council meetings. So I understand that they're getting a little bit rickety. I see the justification that some of them have broken over time. But I do have a big concern with the price tag. So I know that this was a low bid. And I understand that this has a lifetime warranty. However, it's a lifetime warranty based on quality and workmanship, not wear and tear. And chairs on average probably last about, let's call it 7 to 10 years with regular use. And that's just for wooden chairs. I feel like we can more than likely get a better deal somewhere. It's like wedding prices. I'm assuming we went out to sites that deal with the government on a regular basis. So we're getting a price of $200 per chair. If I go through Uline, I can get chairs for about, let's see, $55 per chair for a significant savings. Now it doesn't come with a lifetime warranty, but it's a steel frame, powder coat finish, fabric on the chair. I can get it without arms, so it's accessible to anybody who has to slide onto the chair. It's weight rated. And knowing that and seeing this price tag, I just have a hard time understanding why we would go with this company and this bid over something that's significantly cheaper. So I was hoping we could get a little bit more information on that and understand why we would be going with this bid.
Through the chair, I would introduce, it looks like Michael Leary is available. Michael Leary oversaw this project. And before I hand it up, Michael can speak to the product and the recommendation. I wanted to address the question of why now. We will, in all likelihood, be reconvening in-person meetings in July. We have had, I think, over 25 broken chairs over the past 2 years by members of the public, multiples during election as well. So we have poll workers and voters who, I think some are seniors, who've fallen on those chairs. So replacing them seemed like an emergent need. We also identified the PEG fund. If you'll notice, account number 296, that's a public education and government fund. So those revenues from that fund are generated from cable access fees, not the general fund. So this is an eligible cost because audience chairs are a function of the council chambers and a function of the council broadcast. So we're leveraging those funds that were unexpended. This project is an opportunity. We also know the supply chain right now, the lead time of these things are going to lag. So the other final reason for the why now would be accounting for the 2 to 3 month likelihood lag time of actual delivery of the product. We can order them now, and I'm not confident we'd get them by July, but Michael again can speak to the product and the vendor. So Michael, why don't you introduce us to about the product and the process?
Okay, well, the product, as you said, it has a lifetime guarantee that has to do with the actual frame, not the wear and tear, such as if the fabric gets ripped by someone having a ink pen in the back pocket, that is considered, not a lifetime. However, the chairs are almost similar to what we have now, other than the fact that they are armless. They will not have arms, and that was one of the main reasons for the breakage of the chairs. And the chair weight is up to, limit is 275. If you break down the total cost of the actual pricing, let me back that up. The chairs that we have now are nearly 25 years old. So they have provided us longevity. The chairs that we're ordering at the similar quality will last at least 20 to 30 years. Based on the fact that they don't have arms, there's a possibility they could even last longer because there's not the concern about the breakage caused by the arms. And if you look at that price tag and you break that down for 20 years at 100 chairs total is what we're proposing to purchase, that averages $10.10 per chair per year. If they last 30 years, it averages $6.73 per year per chair. So if you look at it in the investment that the city is putting into these chairs for longevity and quality, then we are providing this at a good price when you break it down in the numbers. I have compared and I have studied the difference between whether you buy plastic versus steel versus wood, and all the recommendations were saying that wood is your best when it comes to longevity and quality. It states here, just for example, also that for the lifetime guarantee that normal wear on products excluded, but that if there is a problem with the quality or workmanship of your purchase, we will adjust, repair, or replace the item to your satisfaction. This price also is a government discounted price, as it states on the invoice or the quote that the original price was $229 and the discount price is $197. And the delivery time is up to 2 weeks. And this quote that I do have, it is reserved for us up to 90 days. The quote was received on April 16th. So there's no price increase because of the current increase in the cost of wood.
So based on quality and workmanship for a lifetime warranty, to me has a limit on time. I would expect that 3 years in, 2 years in, maybe even 1 year in, we may not have that lifetime warranty. Do you happen to know what that time frame is where they would cut us off for the lifetime warranty on the structural component of the chair?
The only way that would be broken is if the company went out of business. But just be mindful that, just to let you know that we have the conference chairs that we purchased a number of years ago, and one of the chairs had broken. I sent them a photo of the chair showing what the cause of the breakage was. No questions asked. They shipped us a brand new chair. No replacement parts. They just sent us an entirely brand new chair to replace that chair. So the experience so far is that we are provided what they promise. I don't know if you can get that from, I noticed that somebody had mentioned earlier on social media recommending Costco chairs. And, I really think that, once again, as I stated, that, this is about the long-term investment that we're putting into these chairs as we have from the chairs that we currently have. I think it's also important to note that I think it's 26 chairs that have broken in the last 3 years, not if you exclude COVID-19's challenge for last year, so that it was 2 years prior to that, that we've had that many chairs break, and it's because they pulled apart because of the arms, that we probably would have had more chairs broken last year if we had regular city council meetings, plus all the other commission meetings that do take place in normal times. And the potential was really about, when are we going to have a situation where someone might actually get hurt? Because each time that the chair is broken, it's when someone has been sitting in it. And only once it was because someone was actually just leaning on the chair. So there is a public safety issue about making sure that we get the right chair that's guaranteed and also good quality.
Through the chair, Michael, I just wanted to also clarify, there's a question as to whether the 2014 flood impacted the replacement of the chairs, and the chairs were not covered under any reimbursements from the insurance company. They were not affected.
If I may, through the chair.
Go ahead.
With the replacement of the chairs, what happens to the chairs that we have? I mean, I don't, maybe that was mentioned, but I didn't hear it. What would we plan to do with those chairs? And two, I actually don't see a problem, and a community member reached out, I don't see a problem with arms on a chair for some. I noticed that the chairs that we have kind of are easily stackable, and we can kind of put them in the rows according to having so many people, so many chairs in a row. But what about investing in some chairs, maybe in the back row for individuals that might need that extra support? In addition to that, I was wondering, what is the weight capacity of these chairs? I mean, have we considered that at all as well? I mean, is that maybe it's something that we can consider as far as wider chairs or something like that? I'm just wondering what's the capacity of these chairs, and I don't see anything. And I just want to comment, I don't see anything wrong with having some arms on some chairs, maybe in the back row along the wall there for individuals that need that extra support. I just think it's something that we should consider to allow more individuals to be able to attend the council meetings and sit comfortably. Would that be a significant cost, a change in price? Is that something that we can do? As far as breaking it up, I don't know. I'm not sure. And I just would like some feedback.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that there is an increased cost because that's an additional piece, a component to the chair. I can certainly check that out. As for having some arm and some armless, I think that was more of a concern about people tend to want to move chairs around, and then all of a sudden where you want to have the chairs intended to be placed, then you're constantly having to rearrange to put them back where they belong.
I think it would be a little more difficult to move the armchairs around when I mean, they wouldn't fit in side to side in conjunction with the other chairs that are armless. Do you know what I mean? I mean, where would they put those chairs?
Through the chair, would council like to see a follow-up proposal for a quote with arms from the vendor? And Michael, I think, the PEG fund has the funding to support additional funding. If that's if the council's looking for more chair diversity, I'm sure Michael can get that quoted for you, and we can bring that back at the next meeting if that's of interest.
It's of interest to me. I don't know what the other council members think.
I would support that.
Councilwoman James got booted again. She's coming back in, so if we can let her back in as a panelist. She's having internet problems tonight. I appreciate everybody's concern about comfort of seating in our council chambers, and this is an opportunity to modernize seating after 30 years of having these be fit. But I have to say that I think staff did here a good job of getting the appropriate quotes from government and picking the right one. It's about having good seating that can be repurposed, reused, moved around, being adaptable and agile in that room, because it gets reused and repurposed every day as a meeting room by staff. It's not just for council meetings. We have elections in here. We have people who are senior citizens who sit in them all day conducting elections. So having I'm not in favor of having hard metal or hard wood, because we have people who have back problems. So I'm glad we're all thinking about ergonomics and everything. That's important, but I'm fine with this chair. But if council has, the desire to look at more chairs with arms or with art arms, I guess that's up to council.
And I don't think I got an answer to what would we do with the other chairs.
Oh.
Well, we could either, I made the suggestion that we could either transfer them over to the Kulik Center, because, the ones that we would determine are still safe to use, of course. Or we could do as we are planning to do with some of our electronics, and that is put it on auction to sell. That would help cover some of the cost of what we're paying for with the invoice that is being proposed tonight. If there is just as a recommendation from Ray Lawn, Councilwoman Leaks May, suggesting some chairs with arms, you would want to limit that to a certain percentage number of chairs. So when I do look for a quote, I would know how many that would be an ideal number. Like a whole section in the back, or?
Well, that's what I'm thinking. A row in the back, along where we have that kind of space, or something like that, just to add some more diversity of the seating for people who need those supports.
Thank you.
Would it make sense for us to ask the Accessibility and Inclusion Committee if there's a certain percentage that's recommended for people with disabilities, for comfort levels, things of that nature?
Well, I do serve on that committee, and I do have been in contact with the chair of that committee probably throughout this meeting. And it's certainly something that I can certainly ask them about, for sure, to see if that's a factor. But definitely, I do think we need the diversity in seating. How many is the question?
Through the chair, I'd recommend staff just provide some administrative recommendations. We can provide you recommendations at 10, 15 to 20% of the chairs, enough to give you a good option. And then Kyle, the assistant city manager, is also the staff liaison to the FAIAC, and he can support Raylon with that question as well.
All right, so are you suggesting we table this and you guys come back with a different recommendation? Is that what you're suggesting?
We can either table it, or we could approve this and come back with an additional recommendation for armchairs. That's up to council. Please just table and bring it back on the 24th if you'd like.
Yeah, I was looking at the pricing, and it looks like the pricing is probably going to be very similar. Not much of a difference in price with the arms. My option for the armlets is for the longevity point, and because that was what was causing the chairs to break, is because of the arms, not because of the chair's actual frame itself.
Through the chair, I would agree with that. My experience is that it's much easier to get in and out of a chair when it doesn't have arms. And historically, the problem with those chairs have been the arms. People put their weight on the arms as they're either getting up or they sit off to the side after a 2-hour meeting. They're kind of sitting off angled and they're putting a lot of weight on the arm. So that's basically why those arms are the issue. I'd like to also add that I'm not really in favor of giving those chairs to the Kulik Center because they are so old and they are in the start of falling apart. I don't want seniors sitting on them at the Kulik Center falling down on them either. I would also like us to consider a few wider seating chairs. If you ever go to a doctor's office, you notice that sometimes they will have chairs that are a little wider because there are some people who have, some weight issues, and a regular size chair isn't as comfortable as one that's a few inches wider. So I would request that be made as well. Thank you, Mayor.
Yep. So diversity of seating is important. It looks like the style of chair is something that everybody's expressed, maybe except Laura, but go ahead with the price points and you'll come back with a recommendation in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, moving on. We are going to move on to the next item, which is, here we go, 9C. Approval of annual stainless steel cleaning and polishing at the DOT project parking structure by Future Fabricating for $5,629 with the expense charged to the parking fund. Contractual services 585-000-818 as submitted by the DPW facilities manager. And again, this was asked to be put on the regular agenda from consent by Councilwoman Mikulski, and we'll invite her to start with her questions.
So the reason that I asked for this to be put on the regular agenda is because I have concerns that we are seeing uniform rust across the surface of the handrails on the east side of the building, in the stairwell. And before we approve a regular maintenance of it, I'd like to discuss why it might be happening and see if there's something that we can do to prevent it in the future so that this doesn't become a regular maintenance item for about $5 to $6 grand, which I know in terms of governmental costs is a drop in the bucket. But because this is such a new structure and because we are seeing it just on one side of the building, not really on the other side of the building, on the Allen side of the building, I feel like we need to have that discussion as to how this happened. Now, I sent in some emails earlier today asking about what kind of steel was used. I went through there and was looking at the galvanized versus the stainless steel, thinking that maybe there was some sort of galvanic reaction happening, thinking maybe the weep holes up above it in the stairwell were dripping down onto the stainless steel below. None of that appears to be the case. This is surface corrosion, and it's very, very light, just a tiny amount of pitting. And I feel like, again, having that discussion about what this is. So essentially, stainless steel is steel with additives. We know that those additives are such that a layer of chromium oxide forms on the surface, and that makes it stainless. So it's quote unquote stainless. Once the surface layer is formed, the steel is known as 316 passive. Passive being that the layer hasn't broken down. Once the layer breaks down, it's active. Passive layers can be broken down by a number of things: poor manufacturing, poor assembly, or poor maintenance. I don't know which one happened here, if any. And we know that it's 316. That's been confirmed by our architect. We know that it's stainless steel, which should not rust under the correct conditions, especially 316. 316 is marine grade. So that's the kind of stainless steel that's used along the Detroit River. It's used along shorelines where there's sea salt spray hitting it on a regular basis. It is not completely corrosion resistant. Like I said, there are a couple different things that can happen that cause that passive layer to go away. But it's incredibly tough material. It's specifically chloride resistant due to higher nickel and, God, what's the other chemical? Molybdenum, I think is it? So knowing all that, I question why on the east side we are seeing this uniform corrosion on these handrails. And before I would be comfortable approving some sort of preventative maintenance, I'd want to know why this is happening.
Through the chair, we've elevated James Jamison, the city's facilities manager, to address some of the questions. James, are you open?
Yep, I am here. So I would say that mainly this is just due to the going through the winter climate in Michigan. There's an anti-icing agents are close to that, and if you actually look through the stairwell, you'll see that there is still some anti-icing. You can see like dust and grime. A lot on the galvanized. The rails have been wiped down. We maintain them daily using parking employees. DPW maintains them monthly to quarterly. They get wiped down. My understanding is that stainless steel, and from having both of these contractors out to look at it, they didn't feel like this was anything out of the norm. They didn't feel like this was damage. It was extensive. They kind of gave me the impression that this is what's to be expected for an exterior application. It is getting wet. It is staying wet when the snow is melting, and we're putting a lot of de-icing agent down in that deck because we need to keep it safe for the public. So what it seems to me is that it's just, it's surface rust, like you said, and some corrosion that will come out. And it seems like it's industry standard for exterior applications to have a comprehensive annual cleaning by a specialist.
Through the chair, I would also add the development context here to help provide some overview of why the east and not the west. So the east side is where the future office development was contemplated. And you'll notice that the east side had the development continue to go forward with no COVID. You would have seen a glass enclosure of that stair rail on the east side and on the central stair as well. And that's just a point of context.
But this is still exterior grade stainless steel that is, it should be rated, if it's 316, should be rated for marine grade situations, not just marine freshwater, but marine sea salt as well. I have a piece of it in my backyard that's been sitting out in the elements and it doesn't have rust on it. So again,
right.
I'm a little bit concerned that we're seeing surface rust less
than
than a year later.
Council member, if I could say, the center stairwell too has some surface rust and corrosion that needs to be addressed too, and that is possibly as bad, or at least close to as bad, as the east stairwell. And my understanding is that that's because it's exposed to the elements, because it doesn't actually have a cap on top. You see it less on the west side, but it's a little bit more enclosed, and it's kind of further from the traffic pattern, so maybe less de-icing agent gets into that stairwell.
So what kind of de-icing agent are we using? Is it just like a salt-based solution?
You know, I can get you, I'm less familiar with the handling of the snow removal process, but I can get you SDS sheets, and I know that we have specifically taken these suggestions of the architects and the engineers for the building based on the traffic coding that's used. It's not salt for sure. It's a de-icing agent. I want to say it's magnesium based, but we've stuck to the specified required chemicals that the engineer and design team came up with.
So
So
I
I
just,
guess my, sorry.
what do you need, Laura, to believe the experts on this project?
It's not about believing the experts. I would say, since we're having this issue early on, I think it might make sense to approve this for this annual cost this time around, and then see if this happens again. And if it does, we would definitely need to consider some sort of clear seal on it, some sort of coating to prevent it in the future, so that we're not seeing this deteriorate.
Yep. And I would add too that is the intention. We know that we need to get it done this year. We're going to trust what we've heard so far, but we are going to do our due diligence. And if we have continual issues where it seems to be more than the norm, as you're saying, then that's likely going to be a warranty issue. And that's something that we may have to go after Nelson Ironworks to have them replace the rails, fix the rails, do something to the rails. And if we avoid maintaining them per the industry standard, I think that we could get into an issue later on where it gives them the excuse to say, well, no, that's not us. That's a maintenance issue, which is why it's important, especially for this first year, maybe even the second year, to make sure that we maintain it based on the industry standard. We try to be as flexible as we can when we make these maintenance plans. Sometimes they're too rigorous and we can do a little less maintenance. Sometimes we need to do more maintenance just based on the conditions of the building. And as we own this building for a little bit longer, the maintenance plan will really stabilize because things will become more standardized over time. We'll understand what we need to do and what we can opt to not do to be a little more cost effective. But this is a new building and we're new owners and we're kind of feeling things out a little bit.
Do you happen to know what that warranty time period is?
I know that it's a year for craftsmanship, but if they installed the wrong type of metal, then obviously that's more than a warranty issue.
I almost guarantee it's 316. I just think that something may have happened to some of those that, again, it could be related to poor manufacturing, assembly, maintenance, you name it. But it's almost impossible to figure that out.
Yeah.
I'd also add that we have talked to the engineer and the design team, and they've said that if it comes to a point where we think we have an issue, it's 304 rather than 316. There are tests that can be done to confirm that.
Well, a simple magnet test should be able to figure that out, and I've already done that.
Well, I think it's important here that I'm glad you've done it, but we need to leave it up to our staff and experts. And I think you brought up some really great points tonight, Laura, about staying on top of this. And it sounds like Greg was already, Councilman Pollica had asked this, and we received all this information in an email from the city manager and James today. So this is sort of a repeat on this, but I'm glad you brought it up. And it sounds like we have an approach, a clear path forward with our staff who've recommended what the experts have said of how to approach this, so that if there is due diligence for replacement, that we have the ability to go back to the installer and have any recouping of the cost of replacement be managed there. So it sounds like we have a process in place of how to move forward. All right, we need a motion to move forward.
If I may, through the chair, so will the motion suggest that this is, do we need to amend it, the motion at all?
No, straight up.
All right. Well, then with that being said, I move that we approve the annual stainless steel cleaning and polishing at the dot parking structure by Future Fabricating for $5,629 with the expense charged to the parking fund contractual services 585-000-818 as submitted by the DPW Facilities Manager.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Lakes May and supported by Mikulski. Madam Clerk.
Councilmember James,
Yes.
No, you're on your phone, right?
Mayor Pro Tem Leaks May,
Yes.
Councilmember Mikulski,
Yes.
Councilmember Polika,
Yes.
and Mayor Piana.
Yes, and that passes. And now we're moving on to our final agenda item, which is call to council. And we're going to start first with staff updates being led by our city manager. Take it away, Joe.
I'm Joe.
Sorry about that. Tonight we will begin with Director of Communications, Kara Sokol. Kara.
Hello, good evening, everybody. I have one quick update to make tonight. About a week and a half ago, our department was able to assist Mayor Piana with a request that she's had for some time, which is to begin delivering an email-based newsletter monthly to the community. It went out, I believe, not last week, but the week before. That was our first edition. It's called Mayor's Message from the desk of Melanie Piana, and it not only has a message from her, but also features some news and noteworthy items, upcoming events, and information from our other council members. The content will change monthly depending on what's going on in the community and what kind of news we have to share. So I'm sure that, we started, I think, with a list of about 2,200 email addresses, which is relatively small comparatively in our community. And we got great feedback. Mayor Piana said she got great feedback. And so we assume more people would like to subscribe to this. So the information is on our website, ferndalemi.gov. Under news and events, we have the first edition featured there for you to take a look at. And our communications manager, Lindsay, has made an easy way for you to sign up. So please check out the first edition. Let us know if you have any feedback or any comments to make, any questions about the issue going forward. And please sign up so that you can stay in the know. And that's all I have tonight.
Thank you, Kara. It looked great. Credit to Lindsay Gunsrick for all the design work on that.
Yes, absolutely.
Next up is Jordan Twardy, our CED director and the keeper of the transparency assurance device. Jordan, can you give us some updates?
Thank you, Joe, Mayor, Council, members of the public. Thanks again for that, Joe. I also do want to just give a quick shout out of thanks to all 59 residents who applied for the Master Land Use Plan Steering Committee and for Joe, Officer Maulmeister, Chief Emmy, Lindsay Gunzorek, PJ Jacobs, and everyone who helped put on our selection process this year. We had a lot of fun doing that. I hope folks had fun watching it and participating. We are still looking for that youth participant. So we're looking for anyone ages 9 to 18 to apply. You can go to the same place that everybody else applied at. It's right on the projects page. If you click Master Land Use Plan from the Ferndale homepage, there's a digital application link there. You can reach out to any of us, though, in the CED department at ced@ferndalemi.gov if you have questions, and we'll walk you through it. But we really want to seat that youth rep before the committee begins in earnest. We feel strongly that youth has a need to be at that table, and we want to make sure that voice is there. So please, if you know anybody that would qualify, that would be excited about this kind of work, we would love to have them. So that's all for tonight.
Thank you, Jordan. Next is our Finance Director, Cheryl Stubblefield.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I just want to give you a little heads up. At the next council meeting, May 24th, I will be bringing forward the water delinquent file. All of the delinquent water accounts, grass and weeds, alarms, they're all 6 months past due, will be rolling over to taxes. So we typically give people till the 15th of May to get those caught up before we actually pull that list.
Thank you. DPW doesn't have any special announcements, but I just want to reiterate tonight council joined me in supporting DPW Appreciation Week, which begins next Monday. So public, if you love your roads, if you love your parks, your landscaping, your water, send us a picture, holla back at your DPW. They do a great job, and we appreciate the work that they do. Emmanuel is here for an update from Parks and Recreation.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just a few quick updates from Parks and Rec. We have a pair of drive-in movies that we will be hosting on June 5th that'll take place at Ferndale High School. The first showing is a daddy-daughter theme, and we'll be showing Trolls World Tour. The second is just a general drive-in movie for a more mature audience, where we'll be showing the Anchorman movie. The tickets for each event are $25 per car until May 27th, after which they will be $30 per car until the night of the event. If you're looking for info for registration, which is open right now, you can head to our city website and navigate to the Parks and Recreation registration page. I also want to announce tonight that we'll be opening up registration for our summer day camp this Wednesday. We're later than usual to opening this registration because we spent a good amount of time trying to plan for whether or not we'd even host a summer camp with some of the COVID protocols and everything that we have to consider and the safety concerns that we have to consider. So this camp will have a reduced capacity from 50 down to 30 per week. And it will run from June 21st until August 20th. Anyone interested in registering for that, look for more information and us to announce it on our Facebook page. And I also have a note here from Lorena about park construction. Construction activities at Wanda and Gary Park have begun. Construction activities, this month residents will see construction area being prepared and fenced, followed by excavation in the upcoming weeks. Improvements at Wanda include installation of a 6-foot wide accessible path, a pavilion, a drinking fountain, and other amenities. And the Gary Park improvements include also the 6-foot paths, outdoor fitness equipment, and other ancillary amenities like a water fountain and trash and recycling receptacles. For more information on that, you can check the Parks Planning page on the city's website. And that's all we have.
Thank you, Emmanuel. To quote Ron Burgundy, you're a big deal around here.
I appreciate it.
Next, we have an update from Chief Emmy.
Thank you again, Joe and Mayor and Council. I have actually a couple of things I wanted to bring to your attention. Just a reminder that this week is National Law Enforcement Memorial Week. It's a time to honor those who've fallen in the line of duty. Since last year, May of this week to 2021, there's been 367 law enforcement officers who have died with line of duty death type deaths. Now, this now includes COVID-19, so the totals are higher than normal, and it is noteworthy to mention that. We appreciate your support here at the police department. You're going to notice that our officers, if you see them walk around the street, they're going to have a mourning badge or a mourning band over their badge to honor the fallen this week. Normally this week we try to have a ceremony to memorialize the fallen. Due to COVID and the recent spike, it left a lot of things up in the air, and we decided to follow the national model. Washington, D.C. and the National Law Enforcement Memorial in D.C., they will have in-person celebrations and memorials October 13th through 17th. So we chose to hold our ceremony on October 13th. It's a Wednesday, to coincide with those services in Washington, D.C. We felt that that was appropriate and should give us some space, some time for more people to get vaccinated, and we should be a safer time to gather. That was our biggest worry. So October 13th, we hope to see everybody for our memorial service. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., it just be a quiet flag movement. We will take some pictures, and it's a chance for our honor guard to quietly acknowledge this week. There's no speaking engagement. There will not be a firing party. There will not be taps played. It'll be a very soft, quiet ceremony. I just wanted to offer that up to anybody who wanted to attend, but it will be short, very brief. Additionally, I wanted to bring to your attention a really nice gesture by one of our officers. Officer Chris Wysick responded last week to a report of a larceny of a bicycle from the Woodward Taco Bell. When he got there, he met with the victim, who happened to be an adult man with special needs who rides his bike to work every day. And he was just felt terrible for the man and wanted to help him. So Chris Wysick, leaning on one of our core values of compassion, reached out to one of our pawn shops in town to see if he could find a bicycle for the man to replace one that was stolen. And when they spoke to the pawn shop and they found out what the reason was, they said, "Oh, we can do better than what we have in stock. Let us look around." And they ended up coming up with about a $2,000 Trek mountain bike for this young man. And they delivered it to him today, and he ran out of that Taco Bell so excited to get his new bicycle. They even took it up to the Trek bike store and had it tuned up, so they were giving him something that was really top of the line. It was really special that Officer Wysick thought about this, and that means that's the act of compassion that we come to really appreciate, and that's what separates, I think, the Ferndale Police from some other police departments, and it's really just special. And I felt it was worth acknowledging Officer Wysick's commitment to, our core values and to taking care of this young man and knowing that he can make a difference. So that's, I just want to bring that to your attention. It may get posted, it may not. I don't know where Officer Mahlmeister was, and I certainly don't want to embarrass anybody and make a big deal about it unless they want to be acknowledged. So you may or may not see it, but it was worth noting. That's all I have for you this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Please share my gratitude for Officer Wysick's integrity.
Absolutely.
Next up is Chief Therese Robinson, Fire Chief.
Good evening, Council, Mayor, and City Manager. So a couple quick updates. I'm pretty excited. There's been work by a few to make it happen, but we do officially have city burn permits transitioned to online platform. Kara even made the adjustments to the city website today. So anybody starting today going forward, if they want to apply for a burn permit, when they click on the link, they get to enjoy the new streamline, much more convenient. I think it's a great benefit to our community because now when they apply for the burn permit, they actually submit the application online, process their payment online, and schedule their preferred date for inspection online. So they don't have to make special trips up to the fire department to do payment. They don't have to worry about having giving us cash on scene, just anything like that. So it's just a great way for us to improve that, making that accessible to our community. And there's information on there that makes it available to them too. So thank you to everybody that worked with me on that project to make it happen. And that is live for our community. And I think the other big thing I want to note today is I want a special thank you to our mayor, our city council, our city manager, and leadership in this community for working with me, working with the county to bring the vaccine clinic to Ferndale. I think that was an amazing thing for us to bring to our community. I think that shows commitment to our community members. And while vaccination clinics are becoming more prevalent as far as where you can get it, for us to still be dedicated to make it accessible to our community for people that want to get it here, maybe have accessibility reasons to try to go somewhere else. I think it was a great gesture. So it was successful. The first day it was 500 vaccines administered at the Kulik Center. The second day we did reserve appointments for our community, and we also made it accessible for walk-ins for people that felt or were kind of challenged and felt frustrated with trying to access or set up appointments through an online platform. That's not always easy for everybody, and everybody has computer access to different things. So we fielded calls, and the county worked with us to make it walk-in, and we had people in our community take advantage of that, where they were able to actually just go up without an appointment, without having to try to do save my spot, and we're able to obtain that vaccine. So thank you to all of you for supporting that and having that vision for our community. And I think it was a great thing for us to have. So everybody that came and got their vaccine already knows in 3 weeks they'll come back and have their second one at the Kulik Center. So again, the full service rate here in our community.
Thanks, Chief, for your leadership on that. And I'd also add another thank you to Chief Robinson and the mayor, both for reaching out to our partner communities, Royal Oak Township, Pleasant Ridge. We do consider them part of our communities, so we wanted to make sure that they were aware of the clinic as well. And we, so we're really grateful for the opportunity. Next, DDA Director Lena.
If I may, through the chair, I wanted to ask Chief Robinson, do we know how many of our community members that we serviced? I mean, I think this was such a wonderful gesture brought on by a collaboration between the mayor and our administration and our chief. And I just would like to know how many individuals we serviced on that particular day where we opened it up just to the community.
So on the second day, I think the vaccines ended up being 100, I think was the last count that I got. When I'm looking at the second doses scheduled for 3 weeks from now, there's 100 second doses scheduled. So while we had the capacity to do 500 in a day, I think it was important for us to make sure we had those appointments available for our community so nobody in our community would get turned away. And then we did open up for Save My Spot also if people wanted to backfill those. But the last number I had was 100. Now, there may have been people in our community that were served on that first day as part of the 500. I would have to see if the county would have any way of scrubbing the data out. I know they're really busy right now to see how many of those were Ferndale or Pleasant Ridge members. But the other thing we pushed to is we want to recognize people that not only live in our community, but work in our community as big contributors to our community. So we opened up to people not only lived in Ferndale, but worked in Ferndale because they are part of our community. And then when they called, I offered up to them for if they had any family members they would like to bring with them. So again, I express it as a gesture from the city and our support to all those that make our community great.
Through the chair, may I ask a question of the chief?
Sure.
Chief, since there's only a few, I wouldn't say 100 is a few, but since there's only 100 people that are going to be returning on the second day, I'm assuming like in 3 weeks, is there a possibility that we could open up the rest of the day to first shot individuals so that, you know, we could announce now, and I'm not making that announcement, but, you know, within the next couple of days, we could announce that we're going to be available for their first shot on that same day that others are taking their second shot. Is that a possibility?
So that would have to be something I would talk to the county. So with these vaccine clinics, a lot of it is really kind of driven by demand and interest. So if we felt that there was enough interest that we could ask and say expand this to not only basically a second dose, close out that clinic, but also anytime you do first dose, you have to do a repeat visit of 3 weeks later. So it would be a matter of them having availability of staffing, if they would be available to come back to Ferndale 3 weeks after that.
Okay.
And so I can pose that question to them if at that point in time they think they'd be looking to continue a site here in Ferndale. I could pose that to them, and we'd also have to ensure as a city we'd be willing to make the Kulik Center available 3 weeks after that date also, because we want to ensure we support anybody who gets the shots for the full series of shots.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm just thinking that, you know, right now there's still a number of people who are, you know, still hesitant, you know, on getting the shot for whatever reason. they may have, but within a couple of weeks they may have changed their mind, and it could be on that day, if it's a walk-in, they just decide, you know what, I'm going to get it today. So I just like to offer that flexibility if that's possible, but I also understand this constraints. So thank you very much.
I think it's also important to keep in mind that we do have a pending approval as far as the age expansion for the Pfizer vaccine, which is the vaccine that we were administering or was being administered at Kulik. So as it expands out to include the 12 to 16-year-olds, they may be looking for sites that will accommodate to make that accessible. So if the mayor, council, city leadership is willing, then I will facilitate that with the county when that comes available, if we want to try to be one of those sites. So these are all things that for us to consider and plan for and offer up if we're able to and we so choose.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. I appreciate the council's patience. We have a lot of announcements tonight. May turns out to be a confluence of a lot of projects and initiatives. Also, for Director of the DDA, Lena Stevens. Lena has a number of issues to report today.
Yes, good evening. This is Lena, DDA Director. I have a number of issues, Joe.
I'm sorry, wrong word. Highlights.
Yes. So I'm thrilled to announce that we had a thoroughly uneventful launch of patio zones this weekend, meaning that during our regular Monday meeting where staff get together to talk about it, the police department reported no calls that were reported directly or indirectly to patio zones. So we have 8 businesses that have been approved by the MLCC, and we have more coming soon. So, thank you to everybody who visited downtown and drank responsibly. And, I think we're going to keep monitoring that and keep scrutinizing it and making sure it's working for us. But so far, the public reception has been overwhelming. So much so that I was burdened by having to send my husband to Rust Belt with more stickers over the weekend for their cups. So woe is me. So speaking also of DPW appreciation, you can now take that drink to that seating area in front of Affirmations at 9 Mile and Allen. It may not be obvious, but DPW did handle that installation from beginning to end. So that was constructed by the same company who made the Schiffer Park benches, but all of the installation was DPW and all the plantings, and it's amazing. As a reminder, each bench conceals 3 bollards designed to help protect the building from a vehicle. And I think also I want to note that you should expect to see more upgrades to our street furniture this summer. Maybe not quite as on the scale of that seating area, but definitely litter cans, newer benches that maybe catch your attention a little bit more, new furniture for seating and things like that. So outdoor activation is really going to be a central priority for the DDA, as well as looking at a more regular maintenance schedule so that these things are not sort of handled ad hoc, that we're planning them each year. We know which things need upgrade and maintenance so that we're not always we can start to get a little more proactive. So I'm excited about that. And that's all I got.
Thank you, Lena. And we'll close with me, the more ceremonial, boring administrative item. I wanted to, and I'll share my screen, just identify for the public and council, the official budget that was adopted in April is now posted online. We have updated the budget page. If you just search budget on the website, you should be directed to this page, but you can also find it under Department's Finance. You'll see that there's an introduction and overview of the general budget process, which is really an ongoing process throughout the year, beginning with the fall 5-year CIP update. You'll see a link to the approved triennial budget book. This budget book by charter will be located in all municipal buildings and will include the Ferndale Library as a courtesy. I'd like to acknowledge the work of Kyle Paulette in putting that together with all of his partners and the finance director, Cheryl Stubblefield. You'll find a summary of PBBI and a summary of the highlights, as well as a letter from me to the community as relates to the state of the budget and local economic conditions. And then, of course, we have all of the links to anything related to the budget, including budget presentations that have been used over the past several months. And finally, a link to all archived budgets as well in case there's any interest. And most importantly, a view to the city's priority-based budgeting dashboard. So this is what the Assistant City Manager Kyle Paulette debuted during the previous council meeting. I won't make everyone suffer through my internet, but if you click through that link, you'll get to the public dashboard page, and that's an opportunity for the public to engage with our budgeting through programs. And with that, I will cede it over to you, Mayor. Thank you for your time. I very much appreciate it.
Thank you. We really appreciate the revamp of the budget page. I always look for the presentations to go along with the budget book. So, all right, now we are up to call the council with council members. And tonight I'm going to start with Councilwoman James.
All right. Thanks for everyone's patience with me tonight. I've had internet issues and I'm now on my phone. But I think that this is a sign that I'm ready to get back into council chambers when the time comes, so that this isn't an issue anymore. But I do want to talk for a second about COVID vaccination. Like everyone else, the last 14 months has been extremely stressful for me. But I can't tell you how my perspective has shifted basically 2 weeks after my second vaccination shot. I'm not saying that all of the stress has dissipated, but a weight has been lifted off my shoulders. I feel like there's a light at the end of the tunnel. But we're not quite there until many, many more people get vaccinated. And the reason that I say that is because vaccination doesn't just protect me. There are people who are not eligible to be vaccinated yet. There are children who are vulnerable, who cannot get vaccinated, even if they and their parents want them to. And while serious complications are rare in children, they're not non-existent. And it requires healthy adults to get vaccinated to help protect children who can't get vaccinated. There are also people with autoimmune disorders for whom vaccination can be very, very difficult or complicated, or can cause them serious medical complications. Their life will not change unless we help protect them. And another point that I'll make, there are a lot of other reasons, but for now, the vaccinations that are on the market appear to be effective against all of the various strains and the different variants that have been popping up. We might not be so lucky in the future. If we can get the COVID virus under control with the vaccines that we have now, we might have a chance. If we don't get vaccinated, if we don't reach herd immunity, there could be more strains that are resistant to these vaccines. And none of us want this extenuating into perpetuity. So this is my plug for those who are hesitant, waiting to see what happens, concerned about getting vaccinated. I get the hesitancy. I was there, over 6 months ago, but the more I learned about the vaccines, the more comfortable I became and the more eager I became. And it really seems like it's worth it. So please urge your friends and family members and neighbors to get vaccinated. That's it.
Thank you, Councilwoman James. Next up, I'm going to go to Councilwoman Mikulski.
Just two things tonight. So May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and a statistic that I've heard a couple times is 1 in 5 American adults will experience a mental health issue during their lifetime. So through the National Alliance on Mental Illness, the theme this year is You're Not Alone. And they're recommending that people start having conversations, sharing information on social media, and prioritizing their own mental health through reflection as well as seeking help. With that said, there's a great resource online through oakgov.com. And if you go into the search bar and you search for community health resources, you will find a laundry list of mental health resources that are available for people in Oakland County. And again, a huge, huge number of resources out there. I would advise anybody who has any sort of issue or wants to seek help to start there, because a lot of these are free resources. My second issue tonight is I have received a number of inquiries from residents about poison bait boxes around our downtown as well as outside of City Hall and outside of the Kulik Center. They are poison bait boxes that is part of our new municipal rodent control program. I'm here to let you know it is not the nasty stuff that bioaccumulates and is anticoagulant based. The product is Fast Track. It's bromethylene. It's a neurotoxin. It does not bioaccumulate, and therefore it should not have secondary effects to non-target animals in our predator population that's helping us. So if you see them, don't be alarmed. Don't crack it open and eat it. Keep your dogs away from it. It is a poison-based product. But again, this is something that's a safer alternative than the anticoagulants that we've used in the past.
Thank you for that important update. And next we will go to Mayor Pro Tem Leaks May.
So a couple things tonight. I would first like to extend my condolences and prayers to the Urban family. I don't know if you all are aware, but the Urban family who runs the Apple Fritter Donut Shop lost a family member recently, and have closed up shop for a little bit to honor that passing. So I just wanted to send my condolences and prayers to that family, who's done so much for the community during elections, during school events, and just very community-minded. So I just wanted to share that with you all if you did not know. Also, if I could, Mayor, do you mind if I read the proclamation declaring Public Works Appreciation Week? I don't think we had that read, and they do so much for this community, and I just want to acknowledge them.
Go ahead.
All right. At a regular meeting of the City Council of the City of Ferndale, Oakland County, Michigan, held virtually on the 10th day of May, 2021, the following resolution was moved and supported unanimously. Public works professionals focus on critical infrastructure, facilities, and essential services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of the City of Ferndale, Michigan. These infrastructure, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals who are engineers, managers, employees at all levels of government and the private sector, who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation water supply, water treatment, and solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures, facilities essential for our citizens. It is in the public interest for citizens, civic leaders, and children in the City of Ferndale to gain knowledge of and to maintain a progressive interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in their respective communities. Now therefore be it resolved that the City of Ferndale proclaims May 17th through May 23rd, 2021 to be Public Works Appreciation Week in the City of Ferndale, and be it further resolved that the City of Ferndale City Council strongly encourages all members of our community to join with it in personally expressing appreciation to our public works professionals for their commitment to supporting the infrastructure vital to our public and economic health. Thank you, Mayor. That's all I have for tonight.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And finally, with Councilman Polka.
Thank you, Mayor. I as well want to pass on my condolences to the Josh Urban family of apple fritters. They have always been, Josh has always been very, very generous to the Ferndale Community Foundation, and just a wonderful, wonderful man, and he's going to be very, very missed. Young man, by the way. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Leaks May, for reading the proclamation on DPW. I did want to also share that if you drive down Hilton between 8 and 9 the next couple of days, you're going to be seeing our awesome DPW crew planting trees, brand new trees on Hilton. So it's been a few years that I've been asking for this, so I am so thrilled that is now happening. A couple of trees were planted today, but the rest of them are going to be planted over the next couple of days. So that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, and I'm glad the trees are coming. We worked very hard to get more trees down there, so I appreciate DTE Foundation and Relief Michigan making it happen, and Aaron, our sustainability planner. I wanted to start off with tonight and bring everybody's attention to a new House Bill 4722, which was just introduced. As I had mentioned, the entire time we were writing our short-term rental ordinance in the city of Ferndale, I have been saying that there have been efforts underway prior to our ordinance that there were preemption bills trying to remove any control out of local municipalities to manage a local short-term rental ordinance. And we've been monitoring that. And now a new House bill under the new legislature has been introduced, and it's House Bill 4722, and it is preemptive. And if it gets passed, it would remove Ferndale's control to actually enforce anything in the ordinance that we just passed. So I just want to let everybody know I will be continuing to advocate at the state level through the Michigan Municipal League. I encourage council members to also call your state rep and senator and let them know. But if you hear of any residents who talk about the short-term rental, I encourage you to tell them to contact their state rep and senator also, so that as this bill starts to advance through the committee process in which it's under tourism. So this is something that we have to stay attentive to, so that the hard work that our community just did doesn't get overridden and completely put into the dustbin. And complementary tonight to what Councilwoman James had talked about is vaccinations. That I just want to let everybody know, I keep looking at the Oakland County case map, and we are below 300 again. We were at 321 at our last council meeting, and we're at 274 for our zip code. So the cases are coming down as we continue to vaccinate and ramp up. And I'm very pleased that County Commissioner came tonight and let us know we're at 55% at the first gateway milestone that the governor has set to help us move through the reopening process for getting back to normal. And then I just wanted to say thank you to the Rust Belt for their 10-year anniversary. I came and visited, and I actually experienced the patio zone outside of their building and the nice area cordoned off for their celebration with the food trucks and seating. It was very nice. It turned sunny, and I had a really nice experience. And so some of my fears, not fears, but hesitations about patio zones were alleviated a little bit, and I think it's going to be a nice addition to our downtown, and hopefully it won't turn into something that needs more monitoring and controlling by the city. It was calm, quiet, and nice. And so with that, I just wanted to say thank you for everybody for participating and lending your voice. And we will see you next time in 2 weeks.